a meteor strikes at the Mr. Olympia, and
Oh
they
shit.
found this group of bodybuilders in some sort of auditorium, and they all have like morphed skulls and different
Yeah.
shaped hips, and their hands are all
Yeah.
thick with protruding nails. And then the aliens find you, and they're like, these were like the uber humans,
The
you
Uber
know, the
humans,
the
yeah.
the uber humans.
The Uber
They would,
sapiens.
yeah, they had ruled this planet because they were much bigger, much heavier. Their bone mineral density was sky high.
Right,
They
right.
all had nephrotic kidney disease. Welcome to Vigorous Podcasts. It's been a while, but I got my good friend Alex Mitrevski on the call, a mutual friend with me and Derek. Alex, you've been hiding out, but you're slowly becoming more popular in social media. How's it going with you?
Yeah. I've never been very interested into being popular on social media. I think it
Uh-huh.
just happens the more you put yourself out there. First, I'd like to thank you for having me on this podcast. I specifically shaved my head for this, so we're both representing the
Exactly, both
meathead.
represent. Yeah.
Yeah, the meathead bodybuilders. Even though on both our ends, this is still self-induced, so
Yeah.
we're not necessarily showing a lot of meat yet. No pun
Yeah.
intended. But we'll see how things go. Within the
Right.
upcoming years. So
Yeah.
outside of that, I think a brief introductory of myself is warranted because for the audience that do not know me, I'm not a pro bodybuilder or anything. I'm just a gym rat enthusiast who has been doing this for like 13 years or so, and I too started like relatively early on with PEDs, and I experienced all the negatives quite fast. So I was like forced to find a way to do it properly. So I kind of got slightly popular when I switched to SARMs, and I
Yeah.
got super shredded to like 3% body fat, maintained that for quite a while, and that's what made me change my outlook and my approach even to steroids. So basically, trying to mitigate side effects and maximizing results rather than just blasting everything inside and hoping for the best.
Right.
So,
You
but
got a
on the
little bit
other,
of you got a little bit of
yeah,
fame when Derek made a video about you for going from
yes,
SARMs to
yes,
steroids. I think we were
yes.
already in touch at the time,
Oh
or
yes, yes.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I
Yeah,
based.
right on Facebook. Yeah. So I saw that transformation because I didn't really know what you looked like at the time, and that was a
Yeah,
huge transformation. Going from SARMs to steroids, and then everybody realized that SARMs was
yeah. That
kind of
I'm not lying. Yeah, people thought I
yeah.
was lying that I was on SARMs. They were like, he's Alex Mitrevski on the SARM transformation, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's like I was 187. When you're shredded and when you're angling on camera, it looks pretty impressive. Like when you're
Mhm.
shredded, is amazing, especially that body fat. And it just played to my strengths. I knew that if I'm not on steroids, if I'm not big, then might as well get as lean as possible and see what happens. And fortunately, that time was when enhanced athlete was coming up, and that's where I saw you with Anthony Huge
Yeah.
in a few videos, and then I was like, oh, this dude's not actually retired. He's very smart, referencing to
We
you
tried. We
because
tried.
everybody
We
else
tried.
was like, yeah. So everybody else was like, I'm like, how are these people that famous and they have this huge a following?
Mhm.
And basically, the longer you put yourself out there, even if you're shit, I guess people will take it for what it
Yeah,
is. So
controversy sells, so
exactly,
that's usually how a lot of
exactly.
guys in the fitness industry kind of get their name. It's through controversy. And there might
That's
not be
true.
so much quality behind it, they might not know so much. But if you put
That's
enough
true.
controversy out there, then inevitably your following will grow.
But the thing though is that are we really after controversy in the most risky sport, so to speak? Well, beauty pageant or like complex way of living, whatever. Because like we're basically messing with our whole system fundamentally on every level. So endocrine
Mhm.
system, nervous system, our immune system, everything. There's no
Reproductive,
other
yeah.
sport where drugs are that much abused and you
Well,
know
I think cycling is quite abusive from what I've
yeah,
seen, and then at the higher levels of the Olympics, like everything
that's
goes
true.
because the drug testing is involved, so they get into more
Yeah,
risky, you know,
right.
uh, experimental compounds or designer compounds. But I think bodybuilding is definitely on the forefront of doing crazy shit with your body,
They're
and
still forced,
you know,
right? Yeah, but they're still forced to be very athletic, to be relatively lean and light, So that saves them, the cyclists, the
Yeah.
Olympic
Hmm.
athletes. They're not stimulating growth pathways 24/7. And the drug testing itself, even though it, makes them do crazy shit acutely, over time, because they have drug testing, they have to go off. They have to, be not suspicious from a biomarker standpoint. So
Hmm.
they're healthier. Actually, they are. So
Yeah,
the
probably because the harsher compounds they can't really take because they're usually detectable for a
Mhm.
long time. And then, of course, you
Exactly.
result to compounds that are either not detectable or not on the banned list yet. Or you optimize everything, which of course is always good. Optimizing as much things as you can while testing clean. I mean, that was
Exactly.
basically my job. For almost 10 years,
Oh,
helping athletes
really?
beat the drug test. Yeah,
Oh my God, I
yeah,
didn't know
good
this.
times. Yeah, good
Oh,
times.
dude, people have asked me about this, but there's a huge liability with this because you know, if the athlete is not 100%, on top of his shit,
Hmm.
a lot of things intertwine with each other's, drug metabolism can be altered just by drinking something like orange juice, for example, which is a
Right.
CYP3A4 inhibitor. So, like, if you do one thing that your coach didn't tell you to, the outcome may be terrible and you can get
Yeah.
busted. And who's gonna
Yeah.
take the blame? So I think
The
what it was
athlete.
very the athlete, right?
Athlete.
Yeah, but like they're gonna be fuck Steve,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he screwed me over. So there's a huge liability in that. So props to you for doing that, honestly. And
Yeah, and it's
even
even
bigger.
more risky. It's even more risky when you take 25% of the medal, because most
Oh
of these
yeah.
athletes would get prize money from their governments. They have this
Mm-hmm.
drug testing to keep up appearances. And this
Mm-hmm.
way, when they keep up appearances that this sport is quote unquote clean, the government can pay prize money to the
Yeah.
athletes. They can pay prize money or support to the national federation that does bodybuilding
Mm-hmm.
or other sports where drugs are actually being used. So many of these
Sure.
athletes would get a decent salary and then a decent prize money for a gold
Yeah.
medal, silver medal, or bronze medal. And I would take a percentage of that or a flat fee for coaching. But of course, if they
Holy shit.
fail, then they don't get
Right.
paid and I don't get paid.
Yeah.
So,
Unless
yeah, it was a stressful time, especially when
you
your
were.
athletes get pulled off stage and they get, backstage for doping, then
Mm,
you have to wait at least 2 months before they get the results. And of course,
true.
if
Yeah.
they
The
fail,
anxiety.
then you don't get paid. So it's
Im-
yeah, it's a lot of micromanagement. So I always didn't really consider it coaching, but more like babysitting because you really got to be on top of the
right.
athletes.
Right.
You can't do this, you can't eat that, you have to do this, you have to do the deep tissue massage therapy and the detection time and let's go check your kidney function just to make sure that it's
Right.
100% because as athletes get older, their kidney function goes down and the metabolites stay in their body longer. So all these
Exactly.
little things, yeah, it's you really have to know biology if you want to beat these drug tests.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you on that. And you were quite lucky that you were not a coach of the Federation of, let's say, North Korea or Russia, because like you fuck up there and then you may not appear next
No,
time,
you might not come back. Yeah, 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 because then it's
Yeah.
their national pride. So I
Right.
just work with
Right.
athletes. I never worked with countries. So I
Uh-huh.
work with athletes, but I've worked with national coaches of other countries to help them understand how to beat drug tests a little bit better. Because for me, it was never really about, you know, getting these athletes on top and beating all the other athletes. For me, it was if
The
everybody
challenge.
passes, then everybody wins. you
True.
know and it's just another rule that is there to be
Right.
broken. So it was more like an IQ test, and after 10 years of doing that, I learned a lot about human
Right.
biology. But it's after a while it gets kind of tiring because it's very involving, drug
Ha-
testing
Have you,
athletes.
have you considered like well, I don't know whether you're allowed to like do like a book, like basically like beating drug test
I
101 or
can, but
something like that.
I'd rather do it during consultations because I don't want this
True.
information to go out to everybody.
Right.
So I
Mm-hmm.
help people here and there. I had a
Mm-hmm.
consultation with a guy in South America and in Europe and China even. And then like 6 months later, they sent the results that I passed, which
Oh
is
my
great
god.
to hear. Yeah, that's great to hear. But
You
I don't want to put
celebrated.
it out there because the problem is if I write an ebook about it, then
Yeah, they're
as
gonna
soon
update
as
the.
WADA will
Yeah.
buy it and then send it to their
Yeah. Yeah.
labs,
Yeah.
and so you keep it in
Yeah.
a very tight circle of what is actually being done, and and then hopefully you stay 2 steps ahead.
In your experience, I'm really interested in this. Is it like very common to use specific like drugs made for a team or an athlete, like basically tailored drugs, custom made? Because there's in the UFC they're speculating, the fighters are blaming one another that
Mhm.
they're using drugs that are very tailored towards the fighter, and that's how they pass drug tests.
Right.
Is that very common, or is it like
In
more
bodybuilding, no,
passing?
no,
No, right? Okay, that's what I
no,
assumed.
no, because bodybuilders, there's not so much money in the sport, and even though
True.
some of the national athletes they get paid, it's not enough to warrant them hiring a lab to get personalized
Right, right.
designer steroids. Whereas in MMA, like
Yeah.
it's millions of
Millions.
dollars. Even if you
True.
lose, there's millions of dollars on the line. And they got their own research and development team. So I've had this discussion with Derek many times.
Hmm.
If I was an MMA fighter or fighter of a high level sport, I would have my
Hmm.
own RD team. I would buy all the supplements and look for supplements that were spiked. So
Hmm.
let's say you find Gaspari Nutrition being spiked with Dianabol.
Right.
Okay, great. You have your scapegoat. Now you run pharmaceutical Dianabol all until the contest.
And then
If you
blame
get
the
popped, blame
yeah.
Gaspari, right? And
True.
you
That's
see
smart.
that they do this all the time. They blame Brazilian steak for clenbuterol, or they blame
True.
this for this drug. This supplement has been tainted with that drug. So there's nowadays it doesn't really fly anymore, but
Yeah.
10 years ago this would be one of the things to get away with it. You see this in the drug tested for the quote unquote natural bodybuilding shows in the States, like the Muscle
Hmm.
Mania, which is polygraph tested. Yeah, it's a joke, it's a joke, but hey,
Right.
it's another way,
Right.
way to beat the system. So you see guys started to retire when the over-the-counter pro hormones started
Hmm.
getting classified
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
steroids. So in
Right.
2004, a lot of people retired. And then in 2013 and 14, a lot of people
Such a
retired again
coincidence.
from, right. So
Right.
you can see like some of the more famous, quote unquote, natural bodybuilders in the States, they retired in the same year that Ostarine was being
Got
detected.
a right. Gotcha. So that they save their
2014,
face.
they saved their face. Yeah, because they were reliant on that. And they know they were using Ostarine for 10 years.
Right.
And then they had to step back because there's no drug test for it and they don't want to get popped. So, and then later
Interesting.
on, there will be there's new drugs that are being used, also in the
The
category of SARMs.
right. Right. I'm more. I would be more afraid as a coach for a retrograde retroactive testing.
Yeah,
So that's something that you like. There's no escaping that. It's a
no,
matter of
that's
just praying,
right.
over
That's
time
at
that
the
it
Olympics.
doesn't.
That's at
Right.
the Olympics, but in bodybuilding, that doesn't happen. They have the A sample, the B
Mhm.
sample might get tested if the athlete feels that the A sample was positive, and they say, hey, do the B sample, they'll test it again. And then if that's negative, then they'll take the B sample results because they need two positives for the doping test to really fail. But once those A samples are negative, then the B samples are never tested and it's just discarded. But in
Yeah.
the Olympics, they store that for years. They store that
You
for
mentioned
years.
you mentioned Muscle Mania. They're using polygraph. That
I
doesn't
think
even
so,
hold
yeah.
in court. Like that's stupid.
No, but
Just
like these federations have their own rules, and it's the same with bodybuilding. They have their internal rules, and they have certain information that they share outside. And every
hmm
federation is different in that sense. So there's athletes that fail the doping test.
hmm
They can't compete in that federation anymore, but their
the
national
switch.
sports authority never find that out because it's internal doping test. So
Hmm.
they can no longer compete. They're banned for 4 years, but their
Right.
national sports federation doesn't hear that the athlete actually failed. And then it's up to the national team to not re-enroll this national athlete again. But that highly depends on the country,
Right. And
and
they're
and how tight and because there's a lot, like this is in in this part of
politics.
the world, politics. So,
Right. That's everywhere though. It's just some places are more subtle and some are just in your face saying just fuck you, we're in charge. Just fucking laughing in the world at the
yeah,
world.
and
But
this
yeah,
and the seniority
that's
is it's insane, dude.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's
Dude,
why I had to step back because it just gets so tiring.
oh, for sure, I can imagine. Even just coaching, just regular coaching, people want
Yeah,
to be babysit. You're paying and you're setting your price for coaching, PD stack, training, nutrition, everything, and then it's like, can I substitute this for that? And you'll answer, and then it's like a whole rant about his wife, his kids, and it just becomes like a like therapy session. And at
Yeah.
which point you're like, dude, just stop, because like we're building relationships with people.
Mhm.
It's organic. So you want to be friendly and actually give advice to whatever extent that you can, but like at some point is like, where's the line? So that's
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
it
I
is.
think it depends on your rates, what you charge for coaching, what your
Hmm.
reputation is, and of course your experience. So in the beginning, I would take all clients because I needed the
Right,
business.
right,
And you
right,
charge
right.
like $100 a month,
I did
and you
50.
think, yeah, right. So you have to start somewhere, and you get
True,
all these
true.
ask holes, right? Ask holes.
Yeah,
They ask a million
exactly.
questions. And the whole day you're texting, even though you have 10
Yeah,
clients. And
right.
then as you realize, you know what, I can't really, this is not very sustainable. I'm going to raise the rates. Okay, you have them drop off, half
Right.
stay, and you get some new clients. And at one point, there's like a turning point around $300 per month where
Hmm.
you only get good clients. And I've told
Yeah,
this
because
to all
they,
my friends. You start charging $300 or more, you
yeah,
don't get
they're gonna be
these
more
annoying guys
assholes.
anymore because they're financially secure. They understand that your time is money, and they're too busy making money themselves. So
True.
they're not going to bother you with these, redundant
Yeah, micro
questions like,
questions.
"Oh, can I have a chocolate pudding with my oatmeal?" Well, the
Right.
$100 client will ask that, but a $300 client won't ask that.
But there's this in
So
this era now, the whole Gen Z biohacking, so to speak. Now we have different types of assholes that are, if they can reference a PubMed study, they're gonna go into a debate with you. They'd pay the,
yeah,
the price, so like you're gonna be the coach, but then they're
hmm
just gonna spam you with, because they're they basically want to prove themselves that
yeah,
they're, I know something more,
yeah,
and they find a way to get into that loophole yet again. That's so interesting, and I want to talk about that
yeah,
because two things I find very admirable about you. First is
hmm
that you really know how to let go. So like, even though you're known for your vigorous Steve,
hmm
which I coincide that with your training more so than your physique, because like when I
yeah,
see how you train, like even from like 2017 when I started following you, I was
uh,
like, dude, like this guy is nuts. Like you went hard as shit. And when you say I'm on like 500 IUs of ACG and some, I don't know, like Tonga get or like some natural herbs, and
yeah.
he's like, you're still training like you're
Still go hard.
on 700 trend. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this motherfucker, like he's gangster as fuck. Like in real life, it's because you're on camera, you're very you're polite, you're charismatic and everything. I'm
Mhm.
sure you're like that in real life, but I feel like there's a side of you that's like you don't want to mess with this dude. So
Childhood trauma is a good motivator. So,
yeah.
right, and I think we all start this sport for one particular reason. Like I started
True.
at 15 when my parents got divorced. It was kind of like my outlet. And then you get, exposed to Dorian Yates. I got a VHS like 5 times dubbed over, so you had all the
Oh
VHS
god.
lines and half of the video you couldn't see. And that so you go to the gym and you're, in a bad space mentally, and then somebody gives you this Dorian Yates VHS, Blood and Guts.
Right.
I mean, where do you go
Yeah.
from there? But it's just something that I always tapped into. But it's getting better. It's getting a lot less than before. So I'm no longer like, if you go through my channel like 3 years ago, I had made a video about how to train with aggression.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fucking dark video when I watch it back
Right.
now, because I know, yeah,
I
I know
gotta.
exactly where that all comes from. But now that
Yeah.
I'm settled and a little bit older, and my body is not keeping up with the mind intensity anymore,
Right.
I'm slowly
Yeah,
just,
you're realistic with
you know,
yourself. You adapt.
yeah,
You
I
adapt,
try.
and also
I'm still pushing a little bit
no.
too hard. I'll
Yeah,
be
but like
honest.
the second thing that I wanted to reference is you basically when you had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So like when you had
Mhm.
like what were your AST and ALT? Like how
I
how
think at
did
the
they
time, like
did they
fluctuating
go?
depending on what I was taking and how
Right, right,
hard I
right.
was training. Let's
On
say
average.
80 to 120, sometimes 150. It's quite kind of high.
So I see
So
that quite often in people that are like gym
yeah,
bros. And they
yeah,
don't give a shit. They're like, it's not bad. It's from training, yeah, or
yeah.
it's from the trend. Like if they can pinpoint what it's from, then it's fine.
hmm
So you
Yeah,
don't
you can
have to do
justify
anything
it.
about it. You justify it. Oh, it's this.
Yeah.
So guess it's fine, right? So
I
and
can
you're
justify
strong.
all my
Like,
blood. I can justify all my blood work now too. And I'm sure
right,
there's one doctor
right,
looking
right.
at my blood work. He's like,
Yeah.
What is going on with your body? But I can interpret it and I know how to change it. But I've done over
Right.
100 blood works,
True.
blood work analysis so far. But it's, when you get older, and for me, it's always a learning moment. So if something is fucked up, like you've
Yeah.
got your autoimmune issues and you're taking care of that. If
Right.
something is fucked up, you should address it.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
of
But
course, a lot of people just shove it under the rug, and then they'll rather focus their attention somewhere else. But like, I only got one body, and I've seen how bad you can ruin your body or you can kill yourself due to the sport.
true.
And I
We
don't want to
see that
get there. I don't want to get there.
we see that quite often. Like the
Mm.
first thing that comes to mind is, Flex Wheeler. So like Kevin comes back and he does it. He pulls off. He looks amazing at his
It
like
was
50
great, yeah.
something or whatever. And then dude, like knowing that he's in chronic, I don't know which state, kidney failure, basically, chronic kidney
Yeah,
disease, decides
yeah,
to
yeah,
decides to randomly come back knowingly. Like the doctor last time he competed at the Olympiad, he knew that if he continues, he'd lose a kidney. And he
yeah,
proceeded back then anyway, does so again and loses his leg, you know. So like that's what I'm talking about. And there are a lot of bodybuilders that they just cannot let go. Like they would
no.
retire officially from
Mhm.
competing, but stay on like a gram of test as a maintenance, and then be like
Yeah.
Dennis James on a podcast says, I can't get below 280 no matter how much I try. I'm just on TRT or even nothing. And I'm like, that's not possible. That's not fucking possible. Look at
I
Dexter
think I
Jackson.
think
Look at, I
yeah,
think
Dexter should have done.
they try to be that big. Come on. Like it's not, it's, yeah, they're freaks for sure.
Mhm.
But like you cannot be 280, 270 without even trying at like below 6 foot. Like that's not
Yeah.
gonna happen. Like
I
realistic.
think Dennis is now like 230. So he came off for quite a long time
Okay.
after he tore his bicep, and then he was
Hmm.
even androgen deficient. That's what I understood from one of his interviews. And so he was androgen deficient for a while, and
Who
then
isn't?
he got tested, and then he went on TRT and he gained a little bit of size back. But it's just super hard to let go when you've been
Yeah.
doing it for such a long time. I mean, you ask somebody to stop playing chess if that's their favorite game, or stop playing cycling or tennis or whatever. You love what you do, but in our case, it's highly self-destructive.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah. And
gotta
it's
you gotta ease back. But I'm not.
and
I mean, I'm not exactly easing back either. I'm still doing quite a complicated cycle, and even though it's
true.
probably my last because next year it's kids time.
Oh,
um
interesting.
yeah,
How
it's
come?
it's, it's time, dude. It's time.
How come you haven't donated? You haven't froze sperm, for example. I feel so stupid that I didn't do this. Like I
I
just
did
feel
this. I did this
you
last
did it.
year.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
when I
like
came
you're
off
good to go.
from the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, I came off,
Uh-huh.
right, and then during this time, I was
Me too.
restarting my fertility, which took
Mm-hmm.
months. And then at the end, before I went back on the previous cycle, I got my sperm up to like 180 million per 1 milliliter. And I like, yeah, the doctor was like, holy shit. And so I said, freeze it. So that's
What was
stored
your
now for later
protocol?
use. So, but I'm not worried that it won't come back, because even now I do my fertility once in a while. I just don't feel like making videos about it because people get so lusty. Um,
True.
you know,
When
it's a
was
weird
this? Sorry, a
industry.
year ago.
It's about a little bit over a year ago. Yeah.
So like yeah, but like even if you restarted yourself and you have like
Mhm.
good spermatogenesis and mobility and motility and like everything's perfect. If I were you, I'd still prefer to use the sperm of a younger Steve that endured less damage through drug
Yeah,
exposure, lifestyle, and
of
whatnot.
course, of
So, like,
course.
as
Yeah.
back in a few years ago, even not that long ago, kids were healthier because like parents decided to have kids way earlier. Now
Yeah.
everybody's waiting
Mhm.
till they're like late 30s and trying to be an entrepreneur and all of these things. So that really, I think that plays a huge role in why like my dad's super old. So I
Mhm.
think I blame him for my autoimmune. Like he's the blame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
but
it could be like, you don't know. Like, my parents were not very healthy when they had me, even though they were young. I think they were around 28. And my
Mhm.
my mom kept smoking and drinking because they didn't know any better while she was pregnant and breastfeeding. So I basically came out sick, all kinds of skin issues and
Mhm.
asthma and that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of undoing to do by myself when I started learning about nutrition at the age of
Mhm.
14, 15. and then it was a slow trajectory back. But for the first 15 years, I was kind of, I know, skinny,
Yeah.
fat, chubby kid, unhealthy, so because I didn't really exercise that much or didn't know anything about nutrition, and neither
Mhm.
did my parents. So at this point, let's say I have kids, and my fertility is good, my wife's fertility is good, we're financially secure, we understand nutrition. I think it should be a better opportunity, or hopefully for my
Mhm.
kids. A relationship is super stable, a much better
Mhm.
opportunity for my kids than what I got, knowing what not to do,
True.
and
True.
having in a much better situation, like you raise your kids internationally, international school,
Yeah.
teach them about money early on, and then hopefully they have an edge on life. But of course, we don't want to wait any longer than 40 to have the first one, and then we'll see if we have a second one.
Did your
But
dad
that's
ever
that's
sit
coming
you
next year. Next
did your dad ever sit you down and tell you, "Yo, Steve, so I fucked up here, here, and here. This was,
year.
good on my part." Like, did you have that type of relationship where like
Yeah.
he was not the parent that would say, "Don't do this, you're gonna fail," and be, all
Mm,
judgmental and all superficial. Like, parents in the Balkans and in Europe are
mm,
usually like that. They're not as supportive as they should be, or even understanding. Like, they don't even start the conversation. Is either their way or the highway. So if you don't
yeah,
do this
but
because this
like
is
in
the work for us,
yeah.
then you're full of shit. So
But in Macedonia, like where you're from, I mean, in the
mhm.
Balkan area, life is quite tough for that generation, right? And I
Yes,
think
true.
they're very, like, even my parents, they're very disconnected from social media
Right, right.
opportunities, new ways to make money, new ways to get information. Right? They hit the library and
We
their
hit the
work,
yeah,
and then the gender roles, and now everything's blurring together. So we have so much
true.
more opportunities. So I remember I
Mhm.
talked with my dad a couple years back, and then recently we talk over the phone because I live abroad. So
Mhm.
I tell him, how's it going, and he can't even imagine because he doesn't have those. He never had those opportunities.
Yeah,
And I
it's like
remember when he was doing consultancy work, also he made a lot of money, and that
yeah,
now that's peanuts,
yeah, and
for
it was
me.
probably through a firm, and it's
It
different,
was through
different
a
people that
consultancy firm. Yeah, it was through a consultancy firm. So he made it big, at the time before
mhm,
the economic crisis of 2008.
mhm.
He made it really very big, even though my
So
parents were already divorced, and so we didn't really get much of support from that.
so
So he did quite well for himself, and
mhm.
didn't have to pay alimony, or not much. And
Mhm.
so he made very good money at that time, and then proud man, and accomplished, and then
Right.
of course the economic crisis and salaries go down, and now I talk about what I've accomplished at
Yeah.
let's say, and we compare ages. He can't imagine it, and I'm sure your
Yeah.
dad can't imagine it either, because you're
Yeah.
quite accomplished over there with your real estate and extra
Yeah.
businesses,
Yeah,
and
true.
it's such a different life. But even
Yeah.
they want to show that they know better, but I think it's always from good intention, but
Oh, yeah.
I always take it with a grain of salt, because their world is not my world, and
Yeah.
in the end you got to live your own life. And if you really want
Yeah.
to live your own life, you just got to get out of the household.
That's true. That's true. I just miss the part of having like regular discussions. Like,
Yeah.
maybe if they knew about podcasts, like how cool it would have been. Like your next, like you're sitting here, your dad's
Mhm.
there, you have microphones, and you're like debating things like that you
Uh-huh.
fundamentally disagree on, and
Yeah.
like that would I imagine I would have conversations like that with my kid, and I
Yeah.
want to be directly involved. So to
Mm.
make sure not to control, but rather guide and give the pros
Exactly.
and cons of my own experience, not just go off of my hardship and just saying this sucks, get away from this or that, or you know but
Yeah,
without
because
aggressing too much.
no, that's okay. I don't think there's any right or wrong in this world, and people have to figure it out, just like you figured it out, and I figured it out. But yeah, for me, that time comes basically next year. So we're running off this cycle for this year, and then in February I'm going to come off, and then it's just
What's your
full.
cycle?
Right now, it's the most
Yeah.
complicated thing ever. So 235 tests, 3/4 of an amp of Bayer test of
Okay.
iron, and they're overfilled.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached a
Yeah,
dose, and then three.
1.3 cc.
Yeah,
Or
1.2,
two.
1.3,
Right,
and
right.
then 3 amps of Bayer Primobolan, and now
Mm-hmm.
I added in some homebrew Mastrone enanthate, but it's about
Mm-hmm.
200 milligrams a week. And I was running nandrolone at about 100, but I took that out because I want to do a little bit of a photo shoot a month from now at my birthday. So
Mm-hmm.
I took the nandrolone out just to get the water retention off, and then I'll take the insulin out mid-September and the growth hormone out, and. So
Do you notice like a significant impact on the raw system from 100 mg of nandrolone?
no, it was actually not so bad, but I'm using telmisartan 40 milligrams per
Mm-hmm.
day, and of course the mastrone compensates to a certain
Yeah, yeah,
extent. But then again, I added in ACG because I had to stock up my ACG because last year, I wanted to run ACG, it would turn out to be fake or bunk or whatever.
yeah.
So
Shit.
I wanted to have shit happens. So I
Yeah,
stocked up. So I just reintroduced that. So my estrogen went up a little bit. Actually, I did my blood work last Sunday, but I haven't really been in the mood to make videos. So
yeah.
I'll
I
get
feel you on
some.
that.
I'll get something out soon.
People,
Um, yeah.
and probably they
So
bug you like in DMs. Why aren't you posting? Why
no,
aren't you
yeah, of
posting?
course. Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, people get excited when they see videos, and that there's very loyal fans out there that
oh
watch
yeah.
everything, like everything, comment on everything, or multiple
Mm-hmm.
comments. And then after a while, you're gone. They're like, "Hey, Steve,
Yeah,
what's going on?"
those are
So
family.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're it's super cool. And sometimes they come here to Thailand, and then they say, "Hey, I'm this with this and this username." I'm like, "Dude, thanks so much for the support because it's." And then I don't want to bother you. I said, "Dude, because of
Yeah,
you,
you
my
can.
channel is successful." Of course, let's fucking bullshit a bit. So
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
yeah.
I,
So I'll
I,
get
I
back to video soon, but yeah, for now the cycle is about a gram of steroids and then GH insulin.
mhm.
I do the IV treatment. I do ancillaries, and then 20 micrograms of clean, 25
Why is it?
micrograms T3.
Why do you call it complicated? I think it's pretty simple.
I have to say that because otherwise people go crazy in the comment section.
Ah, gotcha.
So
Okay, yeah,
for me,
yeah,
it's
I
not
understand.
complicated. For me, it's
Yeah,
routine. It's like brushing my
right.
teeth. I take in the morning, I take a couple things, and then
Hmm.
pre-workout, I take a couple things, and then before bed, I take a couple things. And that's just part of the life. And it's the
For the
same as
rice.
making 6 meals per day, or doing
Right.
cardio every morning, or making my supplement bottle. You get into this routine, and then it's super easy. You just have to follow and tack off the boxes.
That's true.
You know.
One thing also that I I really like about you is that you're older and you've been around, in both eras, like today with the whole biohacking and Gen
Yeah.
Z and
In the
Instagram and
70s.
everything. Yeah, well, not that long ago, but even the early 2000s. I remember where like when a mod on a on a forum used to say
Mm,
something, it's like holy gospel, and
yeah.
people just copy that, and I think that's how a lot of myths have been just spewed via word of mouth without even asking or questioning anything. You just this is the recipe for everybody, and a lot of people from that era have not involved. They are saying the same thing
Mm,
since 2004, and I've seen that a lot of them are top coaches, IVB level coaches.
mm,
They're basically on the forefront of the industry. And when I see how very like how actually uneducated they are on the matters, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this sport is like ridiculous. Because
yeah.
on at that level, it doesn't matter. A lot of those people, I call them, fuck you people, because like no
Mm,
matter what they do, it works. And even from a side effect mitigation aspect, they don't need to
mm.
do much at all. Like those are freaks. The average
Yeah,
Jew
they
that tries
respond
to,
well, and it doesn't matter what you do. But of course, when you go
yeah,
to the Olympia, then it does start to matter. So I don't think that,
gotcha.
like Hani Rambot, for example, I think he's very in tune. He never talks about
Yeah,
PEDs, but from what I've heard through the grapevine, he's fucking in tune with what he's doing, and the results are there. I mean, all of these
exactly.
guys improve, and they look reasonably healthy. But there's other
Sure.
coaches out there that just push drugs and quite high dosages,
Exactly.
and their guys are freaks, but they look super unhealthy. Like the
Yeah,
skin is
the
all
red.
fucked up, the
Yeah,
red face, and the yeah. So again, everybody can choose who they work with, and everybody can choose not to learn. The
is
information
that
is there.
true?
If I can learn, if you can learn, then
Yeah.
everybody can
So
learn. It's just a matter of the desire to learn, right? It's the same as you can learn about finance or how to have a better relationship. It's people just want to take the easy way out and then say, I'm going hardcore into bodybuilding, but you need to learn a little bit more about it. And still have a lot to learn, right? And you can learn more, and Derek can learn more, and everybody can learn more.
Exactly.
But if you don't have the desire to do so, then you just get stuck with the forum knowledge. And yeah, if
But
you have a large following and people listen to that, well, the
that's
following doesn't
dangerous.
always mean that you know what you're talking about,
That's
unfortunately.
dangerous. But we see that in every field. First, I'm like, when I started learning about, bodybuilding, I started off with the diet. Then you
Mm,
move on to train. Well, they coincide, training, diet together. And then you're like supplements, and then you're progressing, and then you get in the world of PEDs. But even that's, to a some, eventually you're gonna, you know, master that as well. If that's everything you have, bodybuilding, that's your identity, you're coaching others, you have following, you have, liability and responsibility, then like I don't understand how sheer progressive overload, just sheer curiosity about what you do, doesn't
mm,
bring you to a really, relatively elite level of knowledge. Like, I would
yeah,
assume if you love your job, then that would spike interest in you, and you would just naturally progress and progress and progress. And like,
yeah,
at the end, everybody should be at a like academic level of, education, even though it's not formal, because like we're
mm,
looking at hormones, the endocrine system, we're looking at the nervous system, we're looking at basically every system in our body, we're modulating everything, we're toying with
mm,
everything. So the most amount of intelligence and knowledge and liability should be within this sport, because this is
I
even
think so.
doctors,
Yeah.
when you go to a doctor with, with, let's say, altered kidney parameters, they'll just look at it, because you're at a nephrologist, they'll just look at it from a nephrologist standpoint. They're
Mm,
not gonna, take everything into consideration. And, we're basically trying to be nephrologists, cardiologists, neurologists, because like when you're all fucked up on,
yeah.
tren on androlones, when you're depressed and you have no libido, when you have hyperlactin, like, then it comes, a matter of like, who's gonna save you if you don't save yourself? Because when you go to a doctor and say, I'm on all of this thing, they're
I'll
just
kick
gonna
you out.
blame you.
They'll kick you
They're
out.
kick you out,
Yeah.
but
They
take
can't
your
help
money
you
first.
either. They'll take your money,
I'll
then kick
take
you
your
out.
money.
So, a lot of you can't blame the doctors because they're bound to their medical license. It's
Sure.
basically our own fault because we get so far away from the medical field. And it's funny that nowadays you have this bodybuilding that's evidence based, right? It's
Hmm.
evidence based bodybuilding. They take studies, but the majority of the studies that they take information from have not been performed on bodybuilders. They're in vitro
Sure.
studies or animal studies or general population studies. So they take a conclusion that's performed on people with diabetes and try to apply that to bodybuilding, or
Sure.
people with HIV and try to apply that to bodybuilding. But polypharmacy and compounding drugs that we do is not kept into consideration of these people who are sick, right? So we can learn from this, but you can't do dogmatic approaches based on the evidence. So I think with the coaches, there's a lot of experience that's involved, and still some bro science, which
Hmm.
they know it works, but there's maybe no evidence to back it up. But
But
why wait?
success.
Why wait for the evidence to come out if it ever comes out when you can now already improve somebody's health, like the carrier oils, for example, right? I think I'm the only one that actually talks about that. So I've been talking about this for years. Avoid particular carrier oils. Make sure your inflammatory markers are low. Right? I'm basically preventing cardiovascular disease for a large majority of the people who are listening to this. But
And
there's,
immune.
yeah, right, and
And
immune
immune.
system issues, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of people they try to look for the evidence. So where's the evidence that carrier oil XYZ causes inflammation? There's none because
Your
these
plant.
studies have not been performed. But you go through my blood work of the consultations that I've done over the last 12 years, you'll see a lot before and afters. I was using Indian made, quote unquote, third world pharmaceutical company XYZ. Inflammatory markers were 30, and now it's
Hmm.
zero point 0.5 milligrams per liter. And this just goes over and over and over. So I think as a coach, you just need time and experience, but you also need to care about your athlete's success in the short term and the long term. So you don't want to drug them to death, but you
Yeah.
want to give them enough drugs so they can
So
win.
they can
Which
survive.
is so that, well, no, and then not survive, but I mean they still need to win, right? And
Right, right, right.
unfortunately, when they get on stage, there's 9 guys there, and then their
Mm.
10th guy, there's 9 guys there that don't give a shit. And then you, as a coach, has a responsibility to keep them as healthy as possible, which, again, many of the coaches, they don't know how to, or they don't care. That's why
Right.
many of the coaches, they're really, knowledgeable coaches, they have, you know, clients that died under their guidance.
What did you say about Henny's Rambot's clients? They look healthy and they
Yeah.
kick ass.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they're kicking ass. Because like when
Because they're
you're
healthy.
inflamed,
Mhm.
where you're in a pro-inflammatory state, and I'm like learning about all of this shit due to my
Mhm.
autoimmune. And as I was doing that, when the thing that you said about the career roles, I was like, it makes so much sense. And it's not just the career roles; it's everything.
Yeah.
There, so like in my case, I had positive histones in my blood work, one of my blood
Mhm.
works, which coincides with drug-induced lupus erythematosus, and that basically means that your body can start attacking healthy, cells, tissues, and organs through just, altered mediations of T and killer B cells. And that process, when that happens, you know, it can proceed for like months, even though you've pulled back on the offending whatever underlying causes, and
Right.
quite
Because
often
it cascades.
people
It just keeps going. Yeah.
and also people don't really it's hard to pinpoint. Like if you have an allergic reaction, immediately. Like you may have
Mhm.
anaphylaxis, you may have like acute reaction. When it's autoimmune, it lingers on, slowly builds up, and then when you're fucked, you're like, okay, what's causing this? Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's and then you're guessing, but you're never fully coming off, and then
Mhm.
you're in a loophole that is prolonged and prolonged and never ends. So you're exactly on point on that, especially with not just the carrier roles, even the solvents. I think that's a
Yeah,
huge
solvents,
problem.
just anything you inject into your body, you're bypassing your, natural immune and defense mechanism by just piercing the skin and jabbing it sub-Q or intramuscular or IV. And the whole system becomes unregulated. So you see there's on the Think Big bodybuilding media channel, they asked something about, testosterone and test flu. And
Hmm.
then Andrew Barry made a very informed remark about one of the metabolites of testosterone, ethylcolonone, and I'll link
Hmm.
it down below. It's
Right.
unpronounceable word.
The-
He said
right.
one of the metabolites, like 4 steps down of testosterone,
Hmm.
can cause an immune response and inflammation. So I'm like, fuck, I didn't know that. So I go
Yeah.
to research. I go to a study of 1973, 1976 that is performed on this metabolite of testosterone, and they injected this in humans
Hmm.
in a carrier oil called poly or propylene glycol.
Ah, PG.
One of
Yeah.
the most one of the most inflammatory carrier oils ever. So they report that at the site of administration, they get horrible post-injection pain, horrible redness. It's
Hmm.
caused by the metabolite of testosterone. No, 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 no. It's caused by the propylene glycol. It's caused by the oil. So this is a faulty study, right? And a faulty conclusion. Now that we
Right.
know that propylene glycol is such a toxic solvent and can cause tissue damage. And then you
And
see
it's
at the
used
same
everywhere.
study, yeah, it's used everywhere. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's in pharmaceuticals, it's not used. It's used as an industrial lubricant. And they might
And
use it in,
SARMs.
yeah, in SARMs. Yeah. That's
Oral
why I stay away
SARMs.
from SARM. Yeah, I know. PEG, they have
They
PEG
have.
300 and
Yeah.
400. That's
And
why every
PG.
time
Yeah.
I get SARMs or liquid orals and you taste it and it goes down, it's like you're having a shot of
Oh, God.
whiskey. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is not what I want. If I want whiskey, I'll
Exactly.
go to a cigar lounge, and get my inflammatory markers up that way. At least
Yeah.
I'll
Have
enjoy
fun with
myself.
it.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Exactly.
Right. Right. So
Exactly.
so all these, like, Andrew made a very good comment, and I started researching, like, wait a minute, it might not be exactly true because there's only 2 studies that show this immune response and this inflammatory response of this metabolite, but it's probably due to the oil, but this gets regurgitated throughout the literature.
Right.
So, and again, so you can't expect everybody to fully understand this. But
Right.
there's so many little things that you can pull from the data if you're willing to dive deep enough. And Hani Rambod has got, I think, a biochemical degree or something, biochemical
Well,
engineering, something like that. He's a smart guy, but he just keeps his mouth shut. And he should.
right.
He
Yeah.
should, because he's coaching top level athletes. He helped The Rock for a while. So if you want to be in that, that squeaky clean appearance, right, you
Mhm.
just talk with your prime athletes and you talk over the phone. And
And
you
is that
only need 5 prime athletes to really make it work. He only coaches 5 guys, I think.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
blame him. And statistical fallacies are quite often are very common in the literature. So
Hmm.
another example is the boldenone that is like extremely kidney toxic, that it's like super nephrotoxic, that worse than trying and every other steroid, and they're just linking a study where it's not just boldenone. It's like one group had like testosterone, androlone, and boldenone. Another group had like testosterone and androlone, and like the group that had like boldenone as included had the worst outcome as far as like kidney markers. Conclusion:
Hmm.
boldenone is like the most nephrotoxic drug,
Yeah.
when in reality like it's never a face-to-face comparison, so you cannot make that
Hmm.
claim. And I'm like, okay, let's look at how that may happen. Is it overly androgenic? No, it's not. If it's mediated through
Hmm.
blood pressure, that's you can
There
attenuate that
was
very easy.
there was a guy on eroids. I think I have it bookmarked somewhere, who kind
Hmm.
of put everything together about boldenone being very kidney toxic, and it was actually quite a good article. So if you can find that, because he dived through all the literature, somebody sent it to me.
Hmm.
Evidence of renal toxicity and ineffectiveness of EQ. So
Hmm.
it is compelling, that
Hmm.
evidence.
You read
Still,
it.
I've read it. Yeah, yeah, I've read all the literature, and I've read. So when you piece it all together, it does look like boldenone is pretty kidney toxic. So
In
all animal models, and
Mhm.
I've never seen anybody get renal toxicity or even proportionally worsened kidney parameters while running boldenone, right, in
Neither have
humans.
I.
But no,
Neither have I.
and in the 80s and 90s, where boldenone was very, very popular, the Ford Dodge came out at 50 milligrams for 1 milliliter, and these guys were just using milliliters of this stuff, the
S-
horse grade
s- So,
boldenone,
so
like
what it
1,000 milligrams per week. And
maybe it was the killer and the solvents because they were injecting so
no,
much.
yeah, that could be. That could be right. That I mean, some of the carrier
Right?
oils are also highly, but I think it was one rodent study where they used olive oil, and then one of them was just a control, so it would inject 1 milliliter or the same volume of olive oil in this study, and then as the dose escalated upwards, the kidney parameters worsened. They would do biopsies, so it does look compelling. But when you look at the grander, you take a step back.
Hmm.
What do men have issues with more compared to women? Neurological issues and kidney
True.
issues.
Exactly. And
What do
prostate
men
because they
produce
don't have
over
prostate, but
women?
yeah.
Testosterone, androgens,
Yeah.
way higher
Androgens.
than females. So
Yeah.
I honestly don't think that it's necessarily one or two compounds that are severely nephrotoxic or kidney toxic or neurologically toxic. I think
Hmm.
steroids are inherently toxic to
I
your
agree.
brain and your kidneys. And it's just the exposure duration and the overall dose and risk mitigation that is making you more unhealthy compared to a guy that doesn't take, right? And then women are
True.
more susceptible to breast cancers or ovarian cancers.
Thyroid or
Yeah, thyroid
thyroid.
issues. Exactly. Yeah.
Autoimmune
So
issues. Autoimmune.
yeah, exactly.
70% are like that have autoimmune. Even my disease, the lupus,
Mm.
are all females. It's not a male
Yeah.
disease. So like that's why estrogen, it's one of the main mediators of actually inducing autoimmune issues, like as a
Hmm.
trigger point. And now
Yeah.
there's the trend of just let your estrogen go super high as long as you don't get gyno. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like in studies, even in prostate studies, estrogen plus DHT increased more prostate
Yeah.
size. They were more proliferative together than
Yeah.
DHT as a standalone. So, do you really want high estrogen, really, or just because they look at proportions? I don't think like based on my um, in my opinion, I think you want it within range, never above
Mhm.
range. Like as people are like claiming now, it's like this whole trend of just letting it go
Yeah.
as high as
100
you
or
can
more.
tolerate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
It's
like, yeah,
insane.
but that's insane. What about your brain? You know,
Yeah.
your brain is not 280 pounds. Your body
Well,
systemic
the funny
maybe
thing is
like
that the guys that promote that, they all seem to have suffered from neurological issues. Clearly,
yeah.
they
I
suffer
agree with you.
clearly from neurological issues, severe
Fully.
personality issues, right? So, like the guys that I know that are composed, okay, John Jewett made a very good post about having his estrogen high, right? But
Yeah, I saw
John
that.
Jewett has already been shredded to the max, right? He's thinned the
Hmm.
skin, very little aromatized activity. Okay, he got bigger, right? That's good. But did he do a before and after on his prostate? Did he already get gyno surgery? How did it affect him mentally, right? You have to look into the
Sure.
total picture. So I think, again, I'm not trying to lay blame or fault anywhere here, but there's one thing you can optimize, but how does that cascade into all the other things, short term and long term? And
Yes.
and of course, cortisol, stress, inflammation, they all contribute to benign prostate enlargement. But if you get cancer, estradiol is one of the mediators.
Exactly.
So, and if you're
And
already on
Eshron.
a ton of masterone or primo or DHC derivatives, okay, and they say that estradiol is a neuroprotective, right? But it's
And Nephro and
neuroprotective
Cardo.
because yeah, but it's neuroprotective because testosterone converts into estradiol, so the burden of testosterone is less.
It's Lester.
And if you
Yes.
take a lot of masterone or primo or anything else that can inhibit the aromatase enzyme, preventing the conversion of testosterone into estradiol, even if you don't take an aromatase inhibitor, even if your estradiol is high, you're still inhibiting the conversion. So you're still taking some sort of an aromatase
Yeah.
inhibition method. So
Right.
the best thing to do is just to not take any drugs.
I
And then
agree
you're
with
just going to
you.
be an average dude just doing something else. So there's yeah,
And
I
it's
think
not just Estradiol.
we've gone very far into the minutia, and I think a lot of guys that are really focusing on the minutia, um, I don't know, they're not very enjoyable to listen to.
But that they try to differentiate themselves from the pack,
Hmm.
and that way they're gonna have something authentic to themselves, like a like a hypothesis or a
Yeah,
recipe. And I think that's why they do it. I think a lot of times they don't even believe it themselves. They just do that for the controversy
they need
and
the
to,
sales pitch.
yeah, exactly. And another just thing to scale back a bit, and it's not just estradiol. People are forgetting about estrogen. People are
Hmm.
saying, estrogen is like super weak and like, but it's still a ligand for the ER alpha and beta.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's interesting that in biopsies in cancer, estrogen is very high quite often, even higher than estradiol.
Yeah.
And another thing is that estrogen can get converted, stored in tissues as estrogen sulfate. I talked
Hmm.
with Ryan about this, and it can get converted from estrogen to estradiol directly within the tissues
Yeah.
via an enzyme called 70 beta steroid dehydrogenase,
Right.
and you cannot detect that on blood work. So, like,
No,
if you have
because
high
it's in the
estrogen,
tissue. Yeah, it's in the
exactly, it's in the
tissue.
tissues, and I've seen that. It has happened to me. I've started developing gyno and EQ only with crashed
Hmm.
estrogen. So, like, my E2 was like unmeasurable, but
Yeah.
prior I was on androgen, come off, went to EQ solo with like I tried to see what's gonna happen. I knew it's
Hmm.
not healthy, because like you need some estradiol, but like I just wanted to see. I was
Oh,
scaling
you
the
went from
doses up.
nandrolone to EQ, so you got
Yeah, yeah,
a potential for aromatase and then an estrone converting
exactly. And
compound,
then it was just, yeah, and it was just
17
estrogen was
beta esterone.
just fucking converting in my breast basically. So I was like, how do I
Yeah,
have crash estradiol on blood work, but like I'm feeling gyno.
yeah.
And that's a big part of what people are just completely neglecting. And another thing is when we're talking about EQ, why do you think it happens? What's the reason behind estradiol being crashed quite often on boldenone? Are you like subscribed to the notion that it's like outcompeting testosterone at the aromatase enzyme? Or I
Hmm.
saw basically a metabolite of boldenone called 70 beta hydroxyxamastane or methylene
Yeah.
boldenone. So I think that's the reason. Like it has a metabolite that's actually an anti-estrogen inherently,
Yeah.
rather
So
than
one
just
of the
out competing.
metabolites, it's either the boldenone or one of the metabolites. Like boldenone
Hmm.
has three metabolites, I believe, that could potentially be an aromatase inhibitor. One of them is called
Hmm.
ATD, aromatase. And
Hmm.
then this other metabolite that you said, the 17 beta oxo examastane, so that's
Se-
aromasin.
yeah,
Yeah.
70 beta hydroxyxamastane, and the
Yeah.
second name of it is methylene boldenone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Quite
Yeah.
interesting.
So
So
I think like when you take a compound, it doesn't stay that way. As soon as you
exactly.
take it, whether it's oral, injectable, it starts to metabolize. And while in most of the studies they measure the actual drug itself,
Yes,
they don't understand or don't measure or don't account for the
they don't account for.
metabolites which are longer lasting. And the longer you take it, the more of these metabolites are going to build up. Right? And some people get an adverse reaction to the metabolites, like potentially this etio whatever, right? This
Mhm, mhm.
testosterone metabolite, potentially.
Yes. metabolites. Nobody accounts for that, and there's barely any human studies, regardless, even on the androgens themselves, rather let alone the metabolites, like
Mm.
nandrolone, for example. Even though it's somewhat bioidentical, there are synthetic progestins that just act as ligands for the estrogen receptor directly.
Mm.
That's why people get gyno, and nobody
Yeah.
accounts. Well, not nobody, but in general, people do not account for that.
No. So you have to
So
look into the total picture, right? And then combine the blood work with the drugs that you're taking, your individual genetic response, and then
that's
keep accurate track of what's going on with your body. So again, if you want to undergo this journey, and what you didn't really understand, what I didn't understand when we started, you need to be your own nurse, you need to be your own
yeah,
cardiologist, nephrologist,
neurologist,
hepatologist, neurologist,
hepatologist.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
right, and dermatologist. You have to be knowledgeable on everything, and unfortunately
hmm,
it's so encompassing, it's
true.
so much to learn that nobody will ever be perfect from the start, right? I thought I knew a lot when I started about steroids, but about
Hmm.
all the cascading effects for short-term and long-term health I didn't know, right? So you learn as you go, and that's totally fine, I think. um you just have to be on top of your health parameters. And when I say health parameters, it's not only blood work, that's also organ imaging, you
True.
know, and doing your semen analysis here or there, and just making sure that you're on top of your antioxidants like properly, because we create so much oxidative stress in bodybuilding. And
True.
people think that they can get away with 2,000 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine, but that's not enough. You
What's
need the
your
ubiquinol, you
antioxidant?
need vitamin C, you need glutathione, you need constant influx of antioxidants, because training on steroids is antioxidants galore, or oxidant, reactive oxygen species galore. And that's why I think a lot of people have, horrible skin, or they get issues with their fertility, right? That's very prone to a reactive oxygen species where the semen quality parameters just goes down. And I think it's part of hair loss,
It
so
is.
yeah,
It
that's why I
is.
do my weekly IV glutathione shots. Yeah,
That's why I have
yeah,
so
it's
good
fun.
such hair. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, Interesting that you brought it up, because I researched it because of you. Because you mentioned about having like some hair loss from cerebrolysin.
yeah,
I was like, how does it cause it, right? And basically, there's a graph where like brain derived neurotrophic factor (BDNF), when it's like 50 mgs, I think, in cerebrolysin, and in the
mhm,
chart, like the impact on TGF beta 1, which is like a downstream cascade of hair loss. Well,
mhm,
this is TGF beta 2 in cerebrolysin, but from BDNF and from androgens is TGF beta 1,
yeah,
so 1 and 2. And basically there was like a huge shot, like from sheer BDNF 50 mgs, and I'm like, wow, this is insane. And it basically, the study ended that this has been attenuated with N-acetylcysteine supplementation.
ah,
They didn't
yeah,
say the dose though,
uh,
but and the same thing was mentioned in the androgen studies about TGF
okay,
beta
right,
1. So in conclusion,
mhm,
everything you said makes perfect sense, and I think it plays a huge role in hair loss because it's downstream effect. So androgens
mhm,
started androgen alopecia, but the cascading effects, if you attenuate them, it's not going to proceed on further and fully,
right. Or not
mediate the
manifest as bad as you would expect,
exactly,
because I think
for sure.
eventually we're all going to get hair loss to a certain extent, or
True.
thinning, just
Yeah.
part of aging. But
Yeah.
if you want to, mitigate it to a certain extent, right? Antioxidants, like you said about the N-acetylcysteine, when you send me
Mhm.
that study, and avoiding particular drugs, which is difficult sometimes because they
You
do have
never
their
avoid them.
benefits. Now you take one thing and then five things to mitigate the side effects. Right? That's how we do it in bodybuilding.
Never drop.
Right? No, right. So
Yeah.
with cerebrolysin, for example, that was for me. I ran it for a month. It's a life changing experience for me.
How did you dose it?
I did 5 milliliters to 10 milliliters per day before bed,
Ooh, every day?
every day for a month. Yeah, I haven't used it
Oh,
since.
I did it IV, but every other
Yeah,
day.
yeah, I
So
did a couple times IV as well. So I did a slow push IV when the girl from the private nurse came to do my
mhm,
glutathione and NAD plus shots. So I would do IV cerebrolysin first, but I didn't notice a difference. So I did
mhm.
maybe 10 times IV cerebrolysin, and then the other days were, so the other 20 days were intramuscular, and it's one of the smoothest injections ever.
Really,
intramuscular. It
5
goes
ml?
in. Yeah, 5 ml per side. Yeah, if I did 10 ml. So 5
Mm-hmm.
ml in the quads if I do it quad day, and then I would do it other body
Oh.
parts, 5 milliliters. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? It's water based, obviously. So
Yeah.
it's interesting though. I've noticed that doing a shot of whatever. So I basically noticed this with taking IGF-1 deaths, which is fake, but it doesn't matter.
Mm,
I would like do it locally and then go
mm,
train, and I have like from the sheer injection localized inflammation, and then
yeah.
there's more blood through paracrine signaling uh, rushing to that place because you're
Mm,
inducing inflammation. I would feel my chest better, my legs better, and that's a really nice trick, especially for back for people that they just don't feel their
yeah.
lats engaging. Just inject whatever that's like not gonna hurt you really, like
Mhm.
maybe uh, glutathione or whatever, um, some I don't know anything basically just to cause a localized inflammation and go train lats. You'll feel
Yeah.
them engaging way more rather
Yeah, you get
than
a little bit of information and pump. So that's actually been around for quite a long time. I think bodybuilders of the 80s used to do that. They would just do their
yeah,
steroid injections, 1 milliliter into the body part that they were going to train. And that, the
right.
bro science would say that they could
Yeah,
connect
they
and feel
grow.
that body part better. Yeah. And then, of course, it would grow. But funny thing is, steroids, when you inject them, they're not metabolized there. So you inject testosterone enthate, it leaves a depot, it gets metabolized in the liver and some other tissues, and then it gets utilized, hopefully in the same place that you used it, but in far lower concentration. So I
Now
made
it's
a deep dive video about that, what happens after you inject steroids. And it was a
mhm.
total minutia video, but it was a fun research topic
Unusual,
to
like
see what
wasn't
happens.
viewed much.
Uh, yeah, maybe 8,000 views.
Okay.
I usually don't get so many views because my videos are lengthy and too in depth.
Dude,
So,
you're so fun to watch though. I just watch your content and
yeah.
sometimes Derek's, but like he's, with the whole direction of YouTube, understanding
Mhm.
the type of content. But I really enjoy your content. And speaking of like views and subscribers, as we talked earlier, you don't need, you know, 500,000, a million. Like the people that are watching you, I respect the fuck out of you and like they're family. So whatever
Yeah.
you say is gospel to most of them.
What I noticed that like now Thailand is opened up again, and a lot of the people that follow me on social media, they start to show up, right? Or you meet them outside, like they're traveling here, they know I'm here, and they're all, or at least the people that I've met, they're all like me. They know exactly what they want. They like to train. They like to take some performance enhancing drugs or thinking about it because I've met a lot of PED guys, and they all love this, biology slash biohacking slash, they love to optimize things. But it's not only the pharmacology, but it's also lifestyle and business, and so it's. I found that through YouTube, I was able to find a lot of similar people. I just thought it'd be more than 60,000 followers. I thought it'd be like 100,000, maybe 200,000.
Give it
So
time.
I probably have to give it time, right? So, but it's okay. There's no drama on my channel, right? I
Yeah.
don't really subscribe to that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just try to keep it informative. In the last month, I've really haven't really had the mood to sit down and make new videos, but I will start again soon. And it's just an outlet for me to kind of share my experiences of what I've learned over the last 20 years, 25 years in bodybuilding, and apparently it's benefiting a lot of people. So it's benefiting 60,000 people for them to subscribe.
That's
That's cool.
insane. That's
Yeah,
insane.
that's yeah.
That's
So and
insane.
people say it's a small channel, but 60,000 people in a room, that's a big fucking room, dude.
Dude, that's insane. Like I see the messages that I'm getting, even like when I get my
Mm,
therapy, wherever. If I post like on my stories, and I get like prayers, good wishes, and I'm like, I can't even imagine with your, with your subscriber count, with your
mm,
followers. So yeah, and they're authentic, and as we said, family. So that's
mm.
more than than enough. That's plenty. That's crazy. That's
No, so
crazy for
that's
sure.
that's why I like. You get the occasional oddball shit remark here and there, or they take
Oh
things
yeah,
that you said out of context, but it can't please everybody. It's just and in the beginning, it hurts when you see that. You're like, jeez,
right.
dude, come on. And after all, you
Yeah.
get kind of immune to it because it's you realize that not everybody is on that level or understands where you're coming from. And of course, in the bodybuilding space, people take things out of context so fast. It's like
Yeah,
it's a very
that's true.
volatile industry. People are so volatile. It's
They
it's
are
weird
because they
because we all take steroids and it affects our brain, but nobody's in touch with their emotions and nobody's in touch on how to control them.
because I think the reason why that is people are simply not. I wouldn't say not intelligent, but not educated. Because like when you look at the
Mm,
actual stereotype of bodybuilders, I'm not talking about professionals, just people that are gym rats.
mhm.
Usually they're thugs. They're you don't see a lot of high and academic level researchers
Of
being in
course.
the gym. So, which is fine. You don't need a university or whatever. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, like everything has its own origin or no origin and a
Yeah,
reason for being known as such. So it's our job to basically show the opposite of that and be a
yeah.
positive, role model, so to speak. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
So
right.
so I have these conversations with you and Dr. Dean St. Mart and Derek and Dr. Scott Stevenson and Scott McNally from Think Big. And then we always try to be positive and lead by example, which
Yeah,
means that you don't grow as fast because, again, controversy grows your channel. But, I feel that it's longer lasting because how many people do we see come and go, in this industry? They blow up fast
yeah.
and then something happens and they're
This
gone. And it's a shame, but on the other hand, you are in control of what you put out, you know?
That's true. But like, what happened to the "we're all gonna make it, bro"? When somebody says that, I'm like, no, we're not gonna make it.
No,
Those that are willing to make it and put the effort and deserve to make it will do. So even the people
you
that
have to
are
grind.
illegitimate, that get there via questionable means, in the long, long, long run, it never plays out
Mhm.
well. And we
No.
know a lot of examples, and not just in bodybuilding. That's in life in general. People call it
Yeah.
karma.
Mhm.
I think it's just whatever. I just believe that if you stick to your fundamentals and you never
Mhm.
change, there's nothing that can surprise you. You are who you are. Your mindset is what it is. You can progress. You can change your viewpoints on things, and that's normal. That's human.
Mhm.
And if there's natural progression and if it's authentic, you can never lose that. There's
Yeah.
nothing
I
to
I
lose because
I do think that social media kinda changes you or hardens you up over time with the growth of social media presence.
Mhm.
Because we're humans, I don't think we're built for this exposure, right, to millions of other people. And then,
Yeah.
so you meet people in the gym. Okay, you have an altercation. You took my machine. You're pissed off. You take it outside. You solve it, and then you do
Oh
your
god.
chest workouts together. That doesn't exist anymore, right?
True.
It's now he took my machine. I'm going to shit talk him online. So the dynamic has changed a little bit, and for that reason, yeah, for that reason, people kind of harden up, but it's a different kind of hard. And I noticed it in myself. Like I'm less approachable than I was maybe 5 years ago before, because I just sometimes you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
Like the
but your
positive
time
stuff
is
and the people that want to talk with you because they're supporters of the channel and they like what you do. Of course, always have time. But some people you're like a little bit on the fence. I'm like, okay, sorry, dude, but I got to focus on my own, you know,
because your
thing
your
and keep
time
it
is worth
positive.
money.
Well,
Your
no,
time is
it's
worth
not
money as
exactly
well.
that. I'm not the cheapest, but I always see it this way. I can spend this time with my wife and have a good time.
Exactly. True. True.
That's the most important thing. Because I have very little time now because I'm in demand, and you'll notice it when you start to grow on social media. You're like less time for anything, and
Yeah.
then you realize you got extra businesses that require time. You have your relationship, you have your family and things you need to take care of, and then time management becomes essential. And then you
Exactly.
realize that bullshitting with somebody for 10 minutes who doesn't really know who you are or doesn't support the channel and just is inquiring and it's just going down, and just not really being friendly about it, being an
Yeah.
asshole. Um,
Yeah.
I realized, like, wait a minute, I can put this towards my wife, or I can do something with my cats, or I can just sit on the
Exactly.
couch and play video games,
Or
because I've
read
already
or
done my
whatever.
12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or go sleep a little bit longer. So I think this is what hardens people up because you're so in demand and there's always something to do that you just get a little bit rough around the edges. Yeah, and it's very hard to not become that when you run a business.
Yeah,
But
it's your
I was
progression.
just, yeah, I think so. I was the same when I was doing consultancy work. I was earning 8 or working 80 hours a week. Just grind, 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 and you just don't want to deal with like small things. Like
Yeah, I re-
beat it,
I, I remember I argued with my dad over some
Mhm.
bullshit, and at the end, like we were arguing for hours and hours, and basically, I was inherently right about this, which doesn't matter. But after all the time, and it ends on the notion of, yeah, I'm still right, and I wasted so much time trying to explain it. I'm like, you
Yeah.
owe me $600 now. It's like for this fucking time,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
that's why I never altercate with people online anymore, because like I use on the steroid forums, right? People would argue all
Yes,
the time. And I was like, "Wow, waste of time." I can
that's
do
my issue.
instead of trying to convince somebody who doesn't want to be convinced because they're on Tremblant, right, and they think they're always right. Yeah, I mean, plenty of guys in the fitness industry like that are just on trend year round, and they think they're right, but they're not. So instead of arguing and going toe to toe with these guys, I can either do more research or spend my time better.
Does
So
it
that's why I
affect you
always
like
think
that?
it's such a drama is back and forth with people.
Whatever you take right now, for example, if you were to take things that are alter, the average guy's, chemical balance, I'm not
Mm,
saying you're immune to that, but I'm sure you'll notice it and you're not going to react based off of that because you're not an animal. And when you're aware of that, okay, this is affecting me and this is why I feel this way, you're not going to
mm,
alter your character. I can do any
yeah,
drug in the world, and I'm not going to change the way that I behave. On a
yeah.
huge level, I may slightly adjust, with shorter fuse,
Well,
things like that,
when I
but
was in
like
trend,
not
I would
not
I would
yeah, but
fucking
that it's the trend. You're like, "Oh, it's the
yeah.
trend, it's the trend. Come on, come on, don't kill him, don't kill him."
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Don't kill this guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but yeah. So on train, that was fucking intolerable, dude.
that's since you mentioned it, that's the only drug that really makes a difference as far as like for me neurologically.
Yeah.
Recreational drugs do not even touch me, not even close to that degree
No,
of
that
like
just
trend. I
puts me in a
cannot
good
even
mood. I was never aggressive on alcohol, and recreational drugs was just always a fun time,
fun,
when I would used to
right?
take them back in my party days in Holland. But yeah, trend is the only thing that really messed me up mentally. And
Yeah,
I
that's
would
insane.
maybe subscribe to the idea of 50 milligrams per week, but at this point, I'm like, for what? I
Yeah,
already got a decent physique, so I don't think my physique is
decent.
going. Yeah, I don't think it's not going to move the needle to a phenomenal physique if I take 50 milligrams of tren on top of what I'm taking now.
Have you seen anything that may like a combination of things that would like come even close to, trend as a like face to face, compar comparison, like comparing those like this tag versus just sheer trend? Like, have you found
Five,
anything that would be?
five times the dose of Primo and a real IGF-1.
Oh, you've tried IGF-1?
I've tried a couple injections of real Increlex when I got served.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shit.
And I know guys that can get it, but getting it here is difficult
Oh yeah, because
because it's fragile.
how would
It's
you? Yeah,
fragile.
it's fragile.
Yeah,
It's very
like growth
fragile.
hormone you can ship no problem, but Increlex
True.
is hard to ship. The
What did you
supply
notice
chain
from
needs to be.
Increless?
Sorry.
What did you notice? Like, because I'm very curious. Because like when people are taking growth hormone and they have,
Hmm.
as a consequence, they have elevated IGF-1, you cannot really like you cannot objectify how IGF-1 feels because you have a
Yeah,
lot of growth hormone in your system that causes a lot of the issues like the water tension, the edema, the
yeah.
sleepiness, the impact on thyroid. Like IGF-1 is the growth factor that we're really after if we're looking at
So I only
and
had
want
like
to
2 or 3
grow.
injections of real IGF-1, and then you try to chase that with IGF-1 LR3 and DES, and you never come close. But with the IGF-1, the Increlex, 25 micrograms per side, the pumps are insane.
Really.
It's in fucking insane. Like I'm using
What
the
about your?
injectable ATP AMP now from Amino Asylum, which is great. That's an
Mhm.
insane product also for pumps. Right? It's a vasodilator, so
Yeah, makes sense.
all the scientific evidence says that ATP can't permeate into the cell membrane, so you can't use it directly. It has to be produced by the mitochondria, which I'm not exactly sure if that's the case because there's a little bit of cell damage, right? When you create
Yeah.
or hypertrophy, so glucose can enter, some aminos can leak, and I think
Yeah,
some
you're
ATP
changing the
can.
structure.
Right. So I think some ATP can get in there, but because the ATP and AMP is such a potent vasodilator, it brings all the nutrients in that area. You take intra-workout with insulin. I'll write a protocol about this, guys. Don't worry. I'll make a video about it. So it's like this hyperanemia, what Milos always says, with insulin and this ATP as a vasodilator. And it doubles the size of your muscle. And I got the same thing with the Increlex, but it feels more like a vacuum, like the muscle is sucking everything. Whereas with the ATP and the insulin, it's rushing.
It just blow up.
Hard to,
Right.
It's a super bro science, of course, but it's one is like a sucking effect, where it's like, and it's
Like a
full,
sponge.
and then you go, like a sponge, and then you go hypo if you don't, And with the
And that was gonna ask.
protocol that I'm following now, it's just rushing in and it's filling up, but it's not continuous. At one point you're full, but with the IGF-1, it just keeps coming in. And you're like, when is this pump going to stop? That's
How
why
is your
the
blood
dosages of
sugar?
Increlex are so low, because people can't tolerate more.
I'm on prednisolone. So
Oh, really?
glucocorticoids, because like when you take IV shots for immunosuppression, in order for you to not get like a reaction like anaphylaxis, they give you corticosteroids and antihistamines. So like I'm both sleepy and edgy. So and I have anxiety, so that's why I'm like.
Oh man! So when is this thing going to get resolved, or is it ever going to get resolved?
It's basically going to remission and hopefully staying there over. Some are in remission forever, so it's like just getting there and using like a maintenance dose, like very slight low, as low as possible doses of drugs to just maintain that level of calmness. Because like anytime something that triggers it, it's like adding gasoline to a fire, and that's when the issues arise. So it's fucked, but I don't talk about it that
I think
much.
at one point you might want to come here and do some medical tourism to get a second opinion, because I'm not sure how good the medical field is over there, but here they got, in Thailand they got so many private hospitals with all guys that went to university in the States. They speak great English. It's very affordable.
Why though?
And because they all come from rich families. They want to be a doctor, and they're like, oh, we go to the States. They get a scholarship, and then they come here back in Thailand.
But like, why would you? I just assume Thailand is like a low life standard place, like Macedonia.
No.
Is not?
No, man. This is people think it's a third world country, but this place is fucking developed.
That's because Tony. I just follow Anthony, and like what he shows in the story is like a shithole, and I'm like, that's disgusting. I ain't going there.
So Tony is in the wrong place of town. He's in Pattaya. So Pattaya is a bit sleazy, a lot of prostitution. It's a bit of a dirty town, and there's fun things to do. But if you go to Bangkok, like most people, most of the smart guys, they live in Bangkok, right? So the guys that are successful, they don't want this, this weird lifestyle, which is fine. If you want to come here to party, okay, go to Pattaya for a week or two. But living there, that's a different animal. So all the serious guys, all the business guys, they're all here, because here you have all the amenities. You have the best hospitals, you have the best hotels, you have the best restaurants, you have the best shopping malls, you have the best cinemas. Everything is in Bangkok. Everything is here.
How much does, let's say, blood work, general blood work, CBC blood work,
privately? I do full blood work, like full, like 10 pages, $500. That's everything.
That's right.
That's everything.
Right. Okay. Everything.
That's over 100 markers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's more. That's comprehensive as fuck.
Yeah. Because when you look at my blood work videos, it's the majority of it. I don't show everything, but that's a large majority. Yeah, I don't have to show everything. It's private stuff. So that's the majority of it. It's like $250 to $400, and sometimes it's $500 if I really want to go in depth. Like sometimes you just test things for fun, like my electrolytes. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just want to see my potassium is too high, but I don't want to spend 5 minutes on a video to talk about my potassium levels when it's always the same. So just cut that out. So
interesting video.
So the blood work is cheap, and my CT scan was $1,000.
$1,000
with analysis, just 1,000. Yeah, my MRI was 1,500. Echo was like 200. Yeah, that's at the best private hospitals where the king went. It takes a little bit of time to get an appointment, but it's super, super cheap. And they all speak English. It's, There's
You're
restaurants in
there.
the hospital. Yeah, I'm there to interpret if needed. So
Interesting.
I tell most people that you have a perception of Thailand, and then you come here, and then you don't want to leave.
Super different. Yeah, yeah. I just thought that they don't want to leave because of the Bangkok, of not Bangkok, the Pattaya
Yeah, the party life, of
aspect.
course. If that's what you're into, I mean, I used to be
True,
into that
true.
shit as well.
No, who
So
isn't? But like for
yeah,
living like that, that's different. Yeah, I
no,
understand.
I can go there for a couple days and then I have to bounce, because it's yeah, it's too much. It's
Yeah,
too much.
and now I have wifey, so
Yeah, I got a wife, so if we go there, it's not to the entertainment areas. I did when there was COVID here, the lockdowns and stuff. I took my motorbike through the entertainment area because everything was closed, and I was like, "Fuck, you
uh,
never get a chance like this." You drive super fast through these walking streets. It's like
yeah.
Mario Kart because all the lights are still on,
Oh
and then you
shit.
drive with your motorbike super fast
Go
through
like
these
this.
winding roads. Yeah, there's nobody there, so that was the best part when
That's
the
wild.
lockdowns were there. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, I may consider it. What about stem cell therapy? Do they do that? Because
Can do
I've
that
heard
here. Yeah, I know several
really.
places where they offer stem cells. It's a little bit more overpriced. So if you want
Hmm.
to do stem cells, it's probably better to go to Mexico.
Mexico, yeah, they go there.
Yeah, where they have the embryonic stem cells, or they can take it from you, from the
Mhm.
spine, but they have to centrifuge it and cultivate
Oh,
it. So that
mm,
takes a little bit of time. Yeah, it's all possible. Again, Thailand just it's a matter of money. So
yeah,
a lot of
but
people
like
come
anything.
here. Yeah, a lot of people that come here on a budget. So there's not so much opportunity when you're on a budget. You're
Hmm.
better off staying at home if you're on a budget. But
True.
if you have a decent amount of income, then life is super comfortable. Yeah,
Interesting.
you
Yeah,
can you
for
can do
sure.
whatever. Yeah, you can do
Yeah,
whatever.
you changed my mind because like Tony was like, "Let me fly over," and I just opened his stories, and I'm like, "Nope."
Yeah.
Now I
watch
have the
watch
full
watch
already.
some of the travel videos about Bangkok and maybe
Hmm.
Phuket. Like basically, you can do everything you want
Yeah,
um, to the extreme, and then
right.
it's up to you to do certain things and to
Or not do.
decide not to do certain things. Right? That's
Hmm.
up to you. So you can go completely off the deep end and turn into a full blown alcoholic and get addicted to street drugs and
Right.
bang five hookers at the same time, or you can come here.
Or ladyboys.
Um, yeah, right. You can do all of that if you want, or you can come here and live a nice, comfortable bodybuilding life with great medical care, good, serious people around you. Good network, serious guys that are all just living their life how they want to, and not taking advantage of the situation.
Right.
And then you talk business and how to avoid taxes and
Yeah,
how to
that's a
set
completely
up, keep
different.
most of your money and right, and then
Yeah.
you meet these business guys and you have a nice cigar at a cigar lounge, and then the bill
Yeah.
comes. You're like, oh, that's pretty reasonable, you
Right,
know.
right.
So your money goes a lot further here,
Yeah. Yeah,
even though
interesting.
sometimes you spend a lot. But
Yeah, but like even here, even though it's not super fancy, if you have money,
mm,
there's opportunity to make more. And that's the same for any place, basically. So it's a
mm,
matter of just improving financially and then
yeah,
just making smart decisions. And then,
exactly.
because that's my game plan. I'll just move out of here when, I just have nothing more to milk out of the place and then
Yeah, but you're
proceed
doing
somewhere
very
else.
well over there as well, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Relative,
so
especially to the life standards.
to the life standards, right? So
Yeah,
if you're in that position, you just pocket all your money, and at one
exactly.
point, you train somebody to do your work for you, and then you start
Yeah.
traveling. Because I think for your age, you have a girlfriend, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for 3
So
years.
so you have a yeah. So and at mid-20s, it's time to start traveling a little bit.
Sure,
I think when you
sure.
have your autoimmune thing under
Yeah,
control and your finances set up, go travel. Because I told the same thing to Derek. Like Derek is grinding
yeah,
24/7, and he's
24/7.
missing it. He's missing out on a very important part of his life, and that's travel. I think it's mandatory for everybody to
Not just
really see the
travel.
world.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Not just travel, just do things outside of the box. Because
Yeah.
now, because now, because I had to lay off the gas from, being
Mm.
so focused on training and things like that. Because
Mhm.
I'm forced to, and I'm like, Jesus, there are other things. It makes you wonder, yeah, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
people, humans, do they
Right.
exist?
Yeah.
You know?
There's more to
So
life than the kitchen, the grocery store, and the
yeah, and
gym.
the drugs,
Holy shit.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, but like a lot
Yeah.
of people have said that when they retire from whatever they've done at a higher level. So that's pretty
Mhm.
interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, it all comes to that, and that's actually the game plan. The moment I figure this out, I'm on my way.
Yeah, just let
So
me know, man. You'll come over here. I'll make sure you get the royal carpet rolled out.
oh
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very easy to go, here. So I think like at your age, like mid-20s or early 30s, I think that's probably prime time to travel, whether you're single
or
or
not, yeah,
not.
doesn't
And
matter.
then, right, if you're single, okay, you sample the locals in whatever country you visit.
Right.
That's totally cool. That's what I did when I
Oh
was
my god.
traveling from 26 to, I came to Thailand at 24 years old. So
Oh,
I
close to
misbehaved
my age.
badly. Yeah,
Jeez.
I misbehaved badly. So
Uh,
and then you travel through, I don't know, whatever country you want, but the dynamic that you get with people from different cultures
it's different,
and
yeah.
meeting other travelers from different parts of the world, it opens you up to communication skills that you can't learn anywhere else, right?
Sure,
Because
sure.
back home everybody's, in Holland everybody's kind of close and it's difficult to get in touch with people, and here it's very, very easy, but even in Thailand it has its limitations,
It's
right?
boundaries, yeah.
People are like, for example, when Americans come here or people from Australia, very quick,
Oh yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
snappy, and
Right.
it's but in a good way, not snappy in a negative way where they get angry, but
They're
quick with their
super, yeah.
words and smart and easygoing, and then they have their own limitations, right? So the more people you meet and interact with, I think the more you can grow as a person, and the
Yeah,
only way you can really do that is just by going out.
you're meeting people. Yeah, your net worth is your network basically. So
Hmm.
um, it is exactly as it is because like you're finding like-minded people from all over the
Hmm.
world, and this is a very good endeavor, even just the fitness online thing. Because as you get into conversations with clients, and then
Right.
you get it progresses onto things that you never even dreamed of. So it's
For sure.
especially
Yeah.
especially if you're good at it, you're gonna find, as you
Mhm.
said, people that are looking for people like them.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
a it's a natural pattern.
in the end, you end up working with people that you like, right?
Exactly.
And of course, you need to have them, to a certain standard, right?
Yeah.
Certain intellect or certain financial success or, certain accomplishments. But there's people out there who are very accomplished, very successful, and very intellectual, but they're impossible to work with,
Yeah.
because
That's
they have shit personalities. They didn't develop it,
yeah, and you
and
don't need them.
no, so but you don't want to work with them. If like I like to work with people that I can communicate with, that are
Yeah.
easy to
Same.
communicate with, and if there's a problem, okay, you can resolve it, diplomatically, sort of say, right? Because at one point when
Exactly.
you work together, something will come up.
True.
So if you develop these skills, I think through travel, a lot of these skills will come to the forefront, and your age is basically the prime to do it when you have some money, but your physique is still young, where you don't get dead tired from traveling.
Right.
Like
Right.
I'm going to the States, right, for Mr. Olympia end of the
Mhm.
year, and that's a 24-hour trip. And when I was 26, no problem.
Nothing.
20,
Yeah.
nothing. If I do it now, I'm fucked.
Let me
I'm
ask you
totally
this.
fucked.
Since
So
you
it's gonna be rough. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, since you brought up traveling. So
Mm,
quite often I see the excuse of, and this is by the pros quite often,
mm.
due to, I missed my flight or jet lag, and now I'm holding like all this water. I was shredded. I swear to God. The
Yeah.
reason why on stage, I looked like shit was because, I missed my plane, and then
Uh,
cortisol, and then this and that. And have you ever actually seen blood work on competitors, like close to the show day or day of the
oh,
show,
many
where
times.
they,
Yeah, many times.
where they, how often is their cortisol supraphysiological significantly to a degree where it would matter?
Not many, but it's a moment in time. So let's say you do 3 days before the show, you check your blood work, right? Because after
Mhm.
that, you start carb loading, you don't have time.
True.
Yeah, cortisol levels are kind of low, normally in a range because there's so much testosterone and growth hormone or whatever in the picture, or growth hormone was taken out, but some guys can run it all the way to the show.
Right.
There's so much in the picture that suppresses cortisol that it's not really an issue. And
Exactly.
then and then reality sinks in and the
Mhm.
athlete starts to doubt themselves. First meal of carbs are in, I'm not full yet.
Mhm.
Second meal of carbs comes in, I'm still not full. Third meal of carbs comes in, I'm a little bit more full, but I'm also watery. Self-doubt. These 4 months of prep now come to these last couple of days and they self-destruct. And And at
by
one
doing
point, the day before the show, that they still don't like what they see. They stress out and then they spill or they retain water. I've seen
uh,
this happen thousands of times.
but do
It's
you think they stress out and do something silly and screw over,
yeah,
or it's
yeah.
from the
Then they make it
sheer
worse.
stress?
Yeah.
It's not only the sheer stress. That's what I'm saying. Because like in the Middle Ages, when or even recent ages in countries where death penalty is a thing,
Mhm.
like do we see people just as they're waiting their execution like day prior, and the next day do they like show up like bloated as
I
fuck,
don't.
like
I don't think there's a
swollen?
before and after. That would be funny, Before and after, he's so
Somebody,
stressed out of it. You see fucking edema around his
yeah, they're like
ankles,
fuck. Like how often do you see that? Do you think like what would
Weird
you
twin.
consider anti-aging? How would you describe that?
Slowing cell proliferation and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that those telomeres at the end of your DNA stay
Mm-hmm.
lengthened. Now,
Would
there's
you do
new
that?
peptides for that, right? But of course, that would also induce cancer growth. But there's so much to look into. Oxidative stress, limiting particular lifestyle choices, lowering stress, environmental pollutants,
Mm-hmm.
right? Basically, we have to wait until Elon Musk is ready,
Right.
and then we'll start over on Mars, because I think in this planet it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but also another thing, bodybuilding fundamentally is just killing yourself faster, not just the
Yeah,
drugs.
no, it is.
You mentioned stopping attenuating cellular proliferation.
Yeah, but
You're
that's what
doing the
bodybuilding is.
exact fucking
Yeah.
opposite. Your
Mhm.
traps are not doing that, bro. Right now,
No, no, no,
ripping
no, they're
through that fucking
proliferated to the
shirt.
max. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like you're. So
so
yeah,
so I
you get what
think
I'm saying.
what I think, like with bodybuilding, it's I made a video about this longevity in bodybuilding. You can't have both, but you can
So,
take from both and kind of mingle in between. Now, there's several levels of bodybuilding, or there's recreational bodybuilding. You go to the gym, you take some PEDs, and you don't take it too far. Then there's, on my level, but that's not competitive level, where it becomes your life. You make money off of it. You have a certain image to maintain, so you practice
mhm,
what you preach. And then
mhm,
there's competitive bodybuilding at the highest level. That's just killing yourself super fast, right?
exactly.
But when you look, the Dexter Jackson argument will come, right? But that's
Hmm.
Dexter Jackson. That's not
Exactly.
you
It's
or
how.
me or
Yeah.
everybody else. That's
When
only Dexter and maybe the guy from Lebanon, right? That guy is also very youthful.
when
So everybody else is dying at 40. So I think it's best to take from bodybuilding, combine that with things from longevity,
longevity.
and then maybe balance it out so you can, follow your aspirations to be a little bit more muscular, be a little bit more confident, go to the gym, have fun, maybe get some girls in the process, or guys if that's what you're into. And
Right.
yeah, fuck, I just met Noel Diesel like 2 weeks ago, and he's
Fine.
he's gay, right?
Yeah.
He has a boyfriend or a partner,
Right.
and so that's his preference. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. It's Thailand. Everybody's happy being who they are. So the further more extreme you get with bodybuilding, the
The,
more damaging it becomes. But I think there's a middle ground somewhere where you can look good and comfortable with your physique, where you don't, start falling over when you walk up the stairs, so you can still be
exactly.
athletic. Like my athletic performance is great. I'm 100 kilos, pretty heavy for my height.
How tall are you?
I can 5'9",
In centimeters.
175
Okay.
centimeters.
Oh, you're jacked.
Yeah, it's pretty big, right? So
Right.
it's pretty big. Most of it is on my back and on my legs, unfortunately. So it's not
Same.
proportionally distributed where we're trying to manage. But I can do on the elliptical, I can do an easy 30 minutes, at quite high intensity. I can push the sled, the entire gym, and it's fully loaded. So my cardiovascular endurance is quite good. I have no issues having
Yeah,
sex,
performing.
which
Yeah.
years ago when I was taking Tren, dude, I would come and have to lie down, just
Would you
gasping
get
for
dizzy?
air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably
get
that.
dizzy and you're like, like
You
completely
know,
fucked. So
and
I don't have that.
with the train. It's not just the blood pressure though, because like I've measured it, and it's not
Mm.
hypertensive, but it feels like you're suffocating, more like an asthma attack, probably
Yeah,
due to prostaglandins or some
prostaglandins, they
inflammation.
constrict
You know,
your bronchial tubes. Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
linger on because they're fatty cells within tissues. People think that
Mhm.
they're just acutely working. They work long term because you're
Longer
repeatedly.
than the train metabolites because it takes longer for these inflammatory prostaglandins to come down. And then,
Exactly.
the oxygen demand goes up, and your reactive oxygen species and your metabolic waste products go up. So your body's under a lot of stress. If you
And you're
take,
adding more.
yeah, and then it's, yeah, I'm gonna increase the
I'm
700
gonna
train per
increase
week.
it.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? Because you mentioned Dexter Jackson, as you
Yeah.
know, as a principle of longevity and bodybuilding, but like
Mhm.
his have you seen his face, his skull? It's so fucking abnormal, and
It
I'm not.
morphed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's morphed. When I was on the FIBO Expo in 2019,
Okay.
honestly, when I saw Michael Lockett and my friend
Yeah.
who was with me, he was like, "Oh, take a picture with me," and I'm like, "Bro, come down. Let's approach him very slowly, observe
Mhm.
like in natural, geographics or whatever, like Animal
Yeah.
Planet. We don't want to scare him or getting attacked. Like
Startle
this
him.
is
Yeah.
yeah, this is not a human. This is
Yeah.
something new." And I'm like, "Bro, if we die today, like a meteor crash or whatever."
Yeah.
And thousands of years later, if they find his skull, they would assume that like they would be like, what the fuck is this shit? Like,
Some superior human, like a different Yautja from the predators. They have different
right.
subspecies. Right? I think
Con-
that would be funny. You have a meteor strikes at the Mr. Olympia, and
oh
they
shit.
found this group of bodybuilders in some sort of auditorium, and they all have like morphed skulls and different
Yeah.
shaped hips, and their hands are all
Yeah.
thick with protruding nails. And then the aliens find you, and they're like, these were like the uber humans,
The
you know,
Uber
the
humans,
the
yeah.
the uber humans.
The Uber
They would,
sapiens.
yeah, they ruled this planet because they were much bigger, much heavier. Their bone mineral density was sky high.
Right.
They
Right.
all had nephrotic kidney disease.
Uh, well, just
Maybe it's
neglect
inbreeding.
that. Dude,
Yeah, I think
and
so. Yeah, it's it's
that's a
it's very
statistical
weird,
error.
but yeah, but when you look at humanity like this, it's so weird because, like, what is the sport called? The sumo wrestling. Those
Oh
guys
yeah.
change their bone structure completely also, and
The Chinese
there's
sumo wrestlers?
the Japanese sumo
Oh,
wrestlers,
Japanese, yeah,
Japanese.
those
Yeah,
400,
so
500 pounds.
that yeah, they're huge, and they're
Yeah.
strong also, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
but it's amazing what you can see, how much you can
Yeah.
manipulate the body. But what surprises me is how much the cranial changes.
Why
It's
why
yeah.
why aren't we seeing that in, let's say, you, for example? So like, or people that
You
are
can
like
see it in me too. Like
well
now
well
that I'm on cycle, but you see my
mhm,
face is way thicker. I am getting these jaw pumps already when I do leg day. So I think
mhm,
it will, when you compare my video when I was off cycle like a couple months
mhm.
ago, you see that my face has changed also. Just growth of the jaw
The
masseter
mandibular,
muscles. Yeah.
yeah,
The
or the
mandibles, yeah.
mandibular. Yeah, but don't you think it's just sheer, a water redistribution? Like you look
That
leaner in the
also. Yeah.
face, and
Mhm.
now you have like a diet face where you're bulking, potentially. So I
Mhm.
think that plays a huge role as well. But you use growth hormone and IGF-1 and tren and everything, and we know people that
Mhm.
are half your size that abuse the fuck out of that, but
Yeah.
nobody really gets that. Those people that on the Olympia, like they're overall so huge, and then
Yeah.
their head grows. So I think it's the cellular proliferation, and gym junkies that just abuse androgens.
Mhm.
They never get there because they're missing out on the other mediators of growth.
Yeah.
So like the IGF-1, the food. Without the food, you're not
Mhm.
gonna
No.
proliferate shit. So
No, no. Mhm.
those things are like food really makes a difference. When I see, as you mentioned, I'm not gonna reference sumo wrestler, just morbidly
Mhm.
obese people. I'm like, food can do this shit. Like this is impressive, even though they're fat, but like they're
Yeah,
super
they have
huge.
their face changes also. Yeah, yeah, but that's mostly fat tissue. But you also
Hmm.
see that when they lean down, they have a thicker face.
Yeah, yeah, but it's
Because they
still.
slimmed. Yeah, I think it's just food volume, and yeah, I mean,
If you
the
look at
skin gets thicker and all that stuff. Yeah.
if you look at the meters of mTORC1, the major growth pathway, it's androgens, hormones mediated, IGF-1. And then you have caloric intake, you have caloric
Hmm.
expenditure. I think that's why pro bodybuilders do cardio, especially like Chad Nichols's clients. Ronnie Coleman, Rami do not need an hour or 2 hours of cardio ever, or
Mm.
even in the off season. Like, why would they do that? People just assume it's for digestion. I think it's an insulin sensitivity. I think it's even more because like car- energy expenditure can add to growth if other
Yeah.
factors, you know.
Yeah, because
So
the
like
turnover, the metabolism
exactly,
increases, and but the signaling also. So if you get more hormone signaling, because there's more ability to absorb nutrients,
exactly,
because you're always depleting them. That's why high volume is always so popular with the bigger pros. It's not because it's a
sure.
superior training style; it's turnover. You're burning it and you're absorbing it. You're
Getting
burning
it.
it. You're so and you have all these drugs that are shuttling nutrients. So it's basically doing the opposite. Instead of training for hypertrophy, you're training the nutrients away so you can take more in.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
that's why they're
It's
so full and round and all that stuff. And it works
and,
great, but it
yeah.
doesn't work for everybody. You know?
But people do not even attempt that. They would just say, because they're focused on only science-based approach. You know,
Yeah.
they're on naturals, and they just
Mhm.
assume it works. Like, can you imagine progressively overloading every day or every week in the gym for like 20 years straight? Like,
Yeah,
how
you'll be
ridiculous! Like
super saiyan. Yeah, it's impossible.
that's fucking impossible. And
Yeah.
when you argue with well, not argue, when you just talk about with somebody that's like a natural coach and a guru, like they would like even feel attacked personally, because if you
Mhm.
question their belief system, it's like you're basically blaspheming. You're basically an unbeliever. Like, they're like a cult. And not just in bodybuilding in general, people have cult like approaches and
You
views.
mean like
Yeah.
vegans?
Like,
Like
yeah, exactly.
carnivore guys.
Oh
It's the
yeah,
same.
everything.
Yeah, 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 it's the
Same thing
same.
with even, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all their fads. Like, come on, chill out. You're not special. It's just one way to do things.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 ways,
They
and
have
people
their
need to
little
find
box, and everything works in the little box, but outside
exactly.
it doesn't work. And then you take them out of that box at one point, and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute." Like for me,
Yeah,
well, and for you, all that matters is the things that work,
yeah,
and people get results for the least
exactly.
amount of side effects and keeping their health intact. But because biology is so different and our genetic pool is so different, that means
Hmm.
for some guy, carnivore and test and GH is going to work, and the other guy,
Hmm.
vegan with boldenone and I don't know, IGF-1 is going to work.
True,
Right? You have
absolutely.
to work with what the body wants. You have to figure out your individual genetic makeup. That takes years. You do a genetic analysis to speed up the
The
inquiry
process.
and the process to a certain
Hmm.
extent, but it's a journey to figure out how the body works and accommodate it without destroying it. um, and that takes years, and there's a million different ways to do it. And I
I
notice that as I get older I have to continuously adapt because my body changes. Certain enzymes no longer
Yeah,
optimize, or I have to
yeah,
or I deplete particular nutrients that it takes weeks or months before I figure it out. So you always have to adapt, right? And it's the same adapting to the world, because the world is always changing, right? New rules
hmm,
regarding taxes, new restrictions, new possibilities. I didn't grow up with social media, and now I'm trying to take advantage of it. So
exactly.
you continuously need to evolve. You can't be stuck. People who
Yeah,
are stuck, they might be a little bit more advanced, right? They're very specialized in one thing. They
and
might
it's
be
just
ahead of
that.
the curve for a year, and then they get stuck. And then
It's
so
weird.
that's that. I just laugh and say it's your problem. It's
Yeah.
not my problem. I just keep learning, just like you learn and Derek learns, and we all try to continuously learn new things, and work with what is working right now.
In this day and age, though, especially in the fitness industry, and the whole PubMed is the holy gospel, it's very hard to even form hypothesis and say something on camera that's new, because you can get
Mhm.
crucified if somebody
Oh
finds,
yeah,
and it's so easy, and they're
yeah.
gonna make videos, and they're gonna call you out, and then like it's insane. You
Mhm.
cannot induce any changes or anything if you don't step out of your comfort zone. And also bodybuilding,
Mhm.
success leaves trails. So
Yeah.
the old school dudes, they're not full of shit. They may not be able to explain it scientifically, but the
Mhm.
thing that they do and preach for the most part is
Yeah.
legit.
I
So
think
there's
also
a
the bro science, we call it bro science, right? It's just
right, right, right,
pioneering something that is yet to be proven, and
right.
that's totally fine. I think
And it's
then you're on the forefront. And okay, maybe it doesn't get proved by science, or maybe
yeah.
it was like 80% correct and this 20% needs to be optimized. But it's up to the
Hmm.
community to continuously evolve what we're doing and try to make it better and better and better. You see over the last 5 years, a lot of new things have come out. The use of beta blockers or angiotensin receptor blockers or ezetimibe to control your cholesterol.
Really
Right, a
cool.
lot of new things have come into the forefront to keep us healthier. Right, our understanding of heart health due to the
Hmm.
pandemic is 10 times better now than it was 3 years ago because now we're all scared.
Right.
Now
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody's doing their CT scan. Everybody's checking their inflammatory markers. Everybody's right making sure that they stay on top or taking a step back from
Hmm.
excessive PED use. How
True.
long that will last,
We'll see.
not really
Pe-
sure. 5 years from now, people probably forgot about it and they'll right back to their old ways. But
Yeah.
it's always evolving, So you have to be on top. That's why I think the learning curve is also very very high right now.
Yeah, I do agree
Um,
with you. But
yeah.
let me ask you this:
Mhm,
would you, because since you mentioned beta blockers, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, ARBs,
mhm,
everything, would you prescribe or suggest, in other words, to somebody that's like they start off a cycle? Is
mhm.
there anything that you would want that to be mandatory in somebody's regime, in somebody's protocol?
Nothing is
Because I
mandatory.
have, because like on my Q&As,
Mhm.
sometimes I shit on excessive drug use. Like, why do you
Yeah.
need a beta blocker if your ejection fraction is normal?
Mhm.
If you don't have like abnormal heart rhythm,
Yeah.
why would you start it early on? Because like polypharmacy is a real thing, and as I told you, because uh researching about the immune system and having like elevated histones in my blood work, that suggests that something exogenously triggered the immune system, and it
Yeah.
can be in anything. So all of these drugs can do that. They can.
So
You
like
don't know. How would you?
you
So
don't know
I,
until you try. Yeah.
yeah,
So
I did.
metformin, for example, can cause all
Hmm.
kinds of histamine issues in your intestinal tract. And that
Right.
happens for some people and it doesn't happen for other people. So like let's say you guide somebody or you start yourself. Every drug you want to add, you have to do your due diligence researching. Right. I just
Yeah.
released a short about this today. I don't think drugs are good or bad. You just
Hmm.
have to research them and look into all the potential benefits and potential side effects,
I
and then
mean,
make a calculated assessment whether that's worth taking or not. And then
right.
by getting your hands dirty, you actually figure it out. But let's say you start on this PED journey, you start with testosterone or maybe ACG, which I get scrutinized for. Why would you
Hmm.
start ACG? It doesn't do anything. Well,
Oh, it
not
does.
everybody responds well to testosterone. So
True.
it's a 1 month trial project to see if ACG is doing something to your testicles, so you know that PCT is going to work or not.
Hmm.
Maybe ACG didn't do fuck all for your testicles. Your testosterone didn't budge. You're on TRT for life because you know that your PCT is not going to work.
Have you tried?
So just try it, right? But
Have you have you
you
tried?
start there, and then maybe later on you add in a bivolol if you notice that your heart function is changing, or you notice that your heart rate is increasing, or you notice that your ejection fraction is coming down, or you get abnormal left ventricular hypertrophy or heart enlargement, or maybe that's in your family. Like I wish I
Yeah.
started a beta blocker from the start because I have
I
heart enlargement and heart issues in my family, but I you know didn't really think about adding a beta blocker in. So
Done a
I've
well,
been
right?
running it nonstop.
Right. I did genetic testing because due to the
Mm,
autoimmune. So my HLA-B test showed that I had this genome that basically, 'cause when you look it up and it's it says that I'm more likely to be prone to side effects from
mm,
ACE inhibitors,
okay.
vasodilators. So so I had a friend. He sent me his blood work, and he
Mm,
had like super high potassium. And I'm like, dude,
ah,
what are you doing?
yeah,
And basically, he was on telmisartan
yeah,
unwarrantedly, just basically because he saw a video of people saying you should be on an
yeah,
ARB to because it's kidney protective. So he just got
yeah,
on that,
yeah.
and he had a cheat meal, and then he took some diuretic to because he was doing raving and things like that. So
Mm,
he completely neglected the fact that he has an ARP in his system, and he's prone to
mm,
hyperkalemia, obviously, because it doesn't do that in a lot of people, especially 40 mg, 80 mgs of telmisartan. It's not
mm,
supposed to do that. And then he's like, I'm gonna train, and he sends me this, and I'm like, bro, if you go train now, and I knew that he uses a lot of ephedrine because he's from Bulgaria. They have
Oh,
the
really?
ampules, in Bulgaria, the ephedrine ampules from Sopharma, they're like
Oh,
coffee.
the
They're just
injectable ones.
yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah.
are fucking
So
legendary.
can you imagine? Can you imagine having hyperkalemia and shooting,
Yeah, and then a
sheer
vasoconstrictor
ephedrine? Dude,
with
like you can fucking
it's
die. And I'm like,
risky. It's
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 risky.
very risky. Yeah, and of course combining nebivolol with telmisartan, that's the recipe for high blood potassium levels. And
People, yeah,
previously, I would always tell people, said, listen, if you really want to be good at bodybuilding, you need to increase your potassium intake because you're burning
mhm,
through so much. And the carbohydrate intake that we, especially if you're following a rice diet, there's not enough potassium in there to help with glycogen storage. So you need to supplement with a little bit in the form of vegetables or potassium salts or potassium supplements. And
yeah.
then
And people
this
are,
ARB rave came out, and then I realized, like, wait a minute, hyperkalemia is a real issue, especially if you combine telmisartan with nebivolol or valsartan with
yeah, all of
another
them.
beta blocker. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I noticed that when I first introduced telmisartan to my nebivolol, that I was getting hyperkalemia. I checked my blood work. Okay, I was at the top of the reference range. So I had to stop all my potassium supplements. So
hmm,
you one little thing you might have to change your entire protocol.
exactly.
So ideally with clients, what I used to do is I optimize all their electrolytes first and their nutrition, and then in 9 out of 10 cases, their blood pressure is completely managed with the
Right.
use of
Without
proper electrolyte intake. You don't need anything. Maybe a little bit of Cialis, but that's multi beneficial, right? You get good boners, good pumps, and it helps with your blood pressure. So Cialis used to be my go-to.
hmm,
Nowadays, we add in telmisartan preferentially over Cialis because it's a little bit easier to source quality
right,
telmisartan.
right.
Cialis seems to be going down in quality. Uh,
Yeah,
and
more expensive as well.
well, for nutrient delivery, I feel that it works a little bit better. So the vascularity, the vasodilating effects
Yeah.
of telmisartan helps with nutrient absorption. So you can see
Uh,
that in the beginning, like the vascularity gets better. And then, of course, with the additional benefits of telmisartan, it might, if you have to choose one compound, it probably best to start with telmisartan. And if it doesn't work, you can always go to valsartan or Cialis, right?
right, right.
So you go step by step. So, but that also means that you have to dial back on the potassium intake. So you
But people,
optimize that first, and people
yeah,
don't do that. People don't
they
understand
don't.
that. They say
They
potassium is the shit, or telmisartan is the shit.
is a
Everybody
shit.
should run it, but please be careful of your potassium intake and make sure you optimize your electrolyte intake
The
first. It's not something to be taken lightly. I don't take it
Done.
off cycle either. I take
And
five
that happens.
milligrams nebivolol when I'm off cycle,
Right.
and that's it. That's the only ancillary I take. The ezetimibe. Now, last time I came off, I don't take. I only take it when it's required. And I only add it when it's
When
needed.
it's required. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the emphasis. People just throw that out of the way. It's like
Hmm.
holy gospel. So Steve said this, and that, and it's like fucking like basically they have a picture of you and
Yeah.
the drug protocol, and that's
Yeah.
it. And you don't even know them. They just saw your
No,
video.
that's the problem of being open and honest on YouTube. You don't know who's copying. And I've
Exactly.
met people who copied one on one, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" I
Why would you?
explain the reason why,
Hmm.
and you're clearly not on this level. But then there's other guys that I meet that are far more developed than I am here in
Right.
Thailand that
Hmm.
look great. And they're
Right.
like, "Yeah, I follow your channel, and I do pretty much the same thing. Not everything the same." I'm like, "Okay, well, it's clearly working."
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and these guys are on
Pat
top. So
yourself on
it's
this way.
yeah, yeah. Oh, not that, but it's these guys are very in tune with what they're doing. So I see it as a compliment.
It is.
But again, it's just a gradual progression. Like again, when you look at my cycle, it
Yeah.
encompasses a lot of things. And
What?
could I get away with less? Probably.
Hmm.
I'll be the first one to admit it. Then again, nobody's documenting this amount of polypharmacy on YouTube with blood work and
Right.
and the capability to explain what changes need to be
Exactly.
made and how that needs to be made. So I'm just trying to set a preface of people how they should do things and am I making some mistakes? Probably.
And that's new
But I'm
content
the
and
but I'm the
original
only
content.
one. I'm the
Exactly.
only one who
Yeah.
does it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
The
don't. I
only
don't.
one who documents this to this extent. I've
Yeah.
documented all my organ imaging, all my blood work, all the drugs that I'm taking. So,
That was my.
so cut me
My
some
criticism.
slack if I'm fucking up somewhere.
That was my criticism of Anthony. I'm like, because initially the whole pioneering human evolution, fundamentally, sounded great. Even the SARMs,
Mm,
they sound revolutionary. They can prevent so many diseases if they, if you modulate estrogen somehow, and they
mhm,
work as they should with like 100% binding affinity to scale to bone and muscle,
mm.
and and preferably some neurological effects, obviously. But the idea was amazing, and then I see, okay, this is the new experiment, and then 5 days later it changes completely, and I'm like, this is not an
It's not
experiment.
very consistent. Yeah.
This is not consistent at all. Like, this is random as fuck. I don't get anything out of this.
Mm,
And I try to explain, and I'm just using examples of people that
mm.
know,
But most guys in the
you have
fitness
seen.
industry are like that. Oh, I don't notice anything, and then they switch. Or they
Then
don't give enough time. Your patience is something that's highly required in this. And
don't
I
share it.
nowadays I don't make any. Yeah, but nowadays I don't make any changes without blood work.
True.
So I took the clen out to see if that would change my cardiac markers, which it didn't. So I put it back in, and then all these little changes. I just get the data so I can make a
Hmm.
calculated assessment and then proceed. And I hopefully within a decade or something this will become the norm. And I see a lot more people are doing this now. Right? I have consultations with guys like this all the time. They do their blood work, then they make changes. They do their
But
blood work, then they make changes.
those people are people like-minded like you, hence why they
Yeah,
follow you, hence why they pay that amount that you charge. So again,
exactly. Yeah.
it's not going to be the standard ever. this
No,
but like,
probably not, but I hope it will. Like I've
yeah,
always done it. Like since the age of 15 years old, I've done my blood work for 10 years before I ever took
same,
PEDs because I
same.
wanted to see what was going on in my body. Because again, my parents were not very healthy, and I see how it can
Hmm.
go horribly wrong in my family. So I was scared. Right?
uh
Not so scared that I'm not willing to take PEDs, but I still want to monitor my health and see what's going on and how it affects my body. And it's very interesting having a little bit of
complementary.
balance. So going super extreme bodybuilding, I think is in this day and age, it's not required. You don't need to go pro. You don't
Hmm.
need to be super freaky big to make money or make a
Exactly.
living off the sport. You can do very well on social media and help people that are just trying to balance their life out better. TRT guys, business guys, they're very cordial and very thankful that you're helping them because they're too busy to do the research themselves. So this is a huge market,
Hmm.
and so you can have a little bit of bodybuilding and a little bit of longevity by doing some fasting every three
Right.
months for a week, right? Shutting off the growth
Yeah.
factors and just do a little bit of autophagy, clean your blood work out, doing some antioxidant treatments or some colonics or
Hmm.
eating some probiotic food, right? All the hippie stuff,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
it does
It
keep you
works.
going way longer.
Yeah.
And the quality of life is actually better because your body feels charged. Like I
Yeah.
feel so much more energetic nowadays compared to maybe 3 years
So
ago when I was in a high inflammatory state, just grinding my socks off and
right.
eating all or 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that.
I, right.
Taking all the drugs and then living this, I'm gonna be 260-pound bodybuilder lifestyle. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I had a ton of fun lifting a
Right.
lot of weights, but I feel 10 times better now.
And
10 times.
it's the
Yeah, and I'm
inflammation.
older.
I think it's kind of blessing in disguise that have to go through this, because now I
Mm,
know how big of an impact it does. So
yeah,
like, when you're in an inflammatory state, the pro-inflammatory cytokines, what they do initially, they induce cachexia, muscle loss, muscle wasting, get rid
yeah.
of the extra shit. So
Mm,
like, I actually wonder like how much better I would have been had I never experienced this, because I've been stuck with this for the past, objectively super intense, more than a year and a half, like close
yeah.
to
Mm,
2.5 years, basically, even though the onset was 3 years ago. But it's progression. So,
right.
and when things, potentiate inflammation, I literally shrink on a day-to-day basis, and when
Yeah.
it's attenuated, I literally grow on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis.
you restore it. Right. Yeah.
It's like it's the fluid, instead of staying intracellular within muscles and the vascular system, it goes extracellularly, and you lose fullness and pumps, and you feel fatigued, heart rate shoots
Mhm.
up. So, and that's very common with people. I'm like, how did your heart rate shot up via more than then 20 beats per minute when you just started off the cycle. Something's wrong. Let's see your CRP.
Yes.
Let's, you know,
Right.
oh, but it's like maybe it's the stress. I'm like, no, this is not normal. Don't justify it. You know, so
Right.
people do need to really address this and think about this. And,
I
you know,
think I think I think we all need like one good health scare to
yes.
get informed. Like, and you're going through yours now, right? And
Hmm.
then once you overcome that,
Yeah.
you have so much more knowledge,
Yeah.
right? And then you can replicate that with other people. Like you're a little bit, in new territory with this autoimmune disease, while you're also trying to pursue bodybuilding and being very busy with your entrepreneurial career.
Mhm.
Right? So it's like multiple things that you have to address. And then once you overcome that, then it's very easy to reproduce that, and you can help hundreds of
Others.
thousands of people. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's just
Potential
same with
clients,
me. Yeah. The potential
business.
clients and people saved, that don't have to undergo this lengthy process that you have to undergo because
Yeah.
the data isn't there.
Exactly. I've
Like I
had
don't
a
know anybody that went through an issue like yours with prednisone shots, and I know
yeah.
people with autoimmune disease, but not to this extent.
You never know where they're gonna end up. I had
Yeah.
a friend with focal segment and glomerulosclerosis,
Oh
FSGS,
wow.
and he
Yeah.
was induced from tren because like tren is very like there's
Yeah.
strong
Very
evidence
strong.
that it causes that, and
Mhm.
he was scheduled for a kidney transplant three
Wow.
4 months when upon our initial conversation, and I'm like, and I basically met him. He commented on Boston Lloyd's some posts, and basically that's how I found out about him, and we talked about it in private.
Mhm.
So when he gave me his protocol, I was like, dude, like like prednisone every other day, the half-life, you should do it daily, maybe change this and this. And he actually did that, and because I was initially on the same therapy as him,
Mhm.
but I had like betterly modulated dosages and ratios, and I said, why don't you try this? The dude actually went into remission. We talked to
Okay.
this day. And
Uh,
like he's a millionaire, lives in California. Like, bro, like like sends me pictures of parties, his house, and I'm like, he's like, come here, I'll take care of you. I'm like, bro, live your life. I'm happy for you. We'll meet one day.
uh,
Right now I need to fix my things, but like I made a huge difference in somebody's life.
yeah.
Like that dude was supposed to be either on dialysis and or have
Yeah, or
like
kidney
a
transplant.
transplant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and basically just went to remission like that. I'm like, why
Mm,
the
oh, yeah.
fuck does this not happen to me? That is, like
Yeah, yeah.
come on. But
Everybody needs their break, right? Yeah. The weird thing is
it's
that sometimes you
ridiculous.
have to really dig deep until you find the solution. Then you're like, oh, fuck it. And it went away so
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, exactly.
So until that comes, you just have to go through the
Grind.
grinder and keep researching
Yeah,
and trying options. And then once you're over it, you're basically the expert in the field and you can help
exactly.
tons of
Exactly.
people.
When
Hmm.
I was in the FIBA Expo, I was really disappointed. I expected some people blew my mind. Like
Yeah.
Wesley
Mm,
Research, for example. When I saw
yeah.
him, he had the width twice the size of mine. I was like, what the fuck? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he's the reason why I choose never to compete. Because like that year he
You can't
never
beat that guy.
he did no, that year he didn't even place top 15 at Olympia.
Yeah.
I saw Brion,
And he
and
looks like a freak.
he looked like a no,
Yeah.
in real life when I saw Brion at the expo, Wesley was
Mm,
way more impressive. Like if I
yeah.
had to, because like he was like a huge, like an oak.
He's
Like,
a
he
huge
looked like,
human. He's super nice also.
oh yeah, yeah,
That's why
yeah.
a guy like Wesley, like I had him on the podcast a while back and I talked with him here
Uh-huh.
and there. Super nice guy. Super nice guy. I feel
Yeah.
really bad for him that he's still in Holland because he deserves way more than what Holland can offer him. But he's got a family business there.
Probably he
So
knows why he is. He said, yeah, but like,
his family there. So at one point I think he will move also, when he's more settled.
so
Right, and he belongs in the US or the Dubai, where he can just his business will just take off tenfold. Wesley, if
yeah,
you're
but it's
watching, you know what to do. So
yeah.
these
You,
guys, right? They're social media guys, and I get why they're popular, right? They got a great physique, but they also got a great personality. But there's also a lot of
that's
social
true.
media guys with decent physiques and no personality.
And they flop.
And no, but they're still popular now. Like, how the fuck is this possible? Why does this guy have so many followers when there's literally nothing there?
I don't get that. I
There's
don't get that.
no, it's like the algorithm just favors them or something, or they know how to
No,
market the
yeah,
algorithm,
yeah,
or they bought followers. I don't
or
know.
they do that. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm
interesting.
old, man. I don't understand this social media shit. So I
Uh,
just post shit, and I hopefully people learn something from it, and
Hope
they
for the
see some
best.
sort of quality. Yeah, and then I hope that they share that. I'm
Okay,
gonna let you
thanks.
go. It's been
Alrighty.
2.5
Yeah,
hours. This was fun, man. It was
yeah,
good to
very
talk to you on
fun.
camera for
Nice
sure.
talking.
I'll put this online soon. Plug your
Mm-hmm.
social media, Alex. You can find all the links below. But where can people find you?
Yeah, at Mitrevski Alex
Hmm.
on Instagram, and I have my godofhormones.com website also
Ooh,
in my Instagram bio. Yeah,
very nice.
slightly cocky, but also it's motivating. So it's good to be
Uh,
cocky if if you believe in yourself and use that as a driving force rather than
uh,
shitting on people and putting yourself above others.
for
So
sure.
thanks for having me. It
What's your
was
YouTube
very fun.
channel?
Don't have one yet. I'm doing a podcast with Ryan Russo
Uh-huh.
called Blonde Biohacking. We have 4 or 5 episodes out, and we're gonna
Hmm.
continue, filming content for you guys. But I'm actually planning to start my YouTube channel and do some individual content. So we'll see. It's gonna be probably like a few videos a month, but why
That's
not
fine.
speak my mind, publicly? Because I
Exactly.
do a lot of comprehensive Instagram Q&As, and I go really in depth,
Hmm.
answering
Make a
people.
YouTube channel. It's
Yeah,
there's
it's
there's
gonna.
enough there's enough for everybody, and I'm sure people would love to see you on camera talk about your individual ideas
Yeah,
because
thank you.
you have some unique knowledge that nobody else has, and especially with your autoimmune disease.
Yeah,
If you can slowly conquer that, thousands
yeah.
of people will benefit for
I,
sure,
I
man.
that's why I don't talk about it that much, because like I think you have like ultimate credibility when you overcome
Mm-hmm.
in the obstacles, and then you can talk about
Mm-hmm.
it. Because people
No,
are
but
playing victim cards. I don't like that. But like
yeah,
they basically make something that happened in their life their whole personality, and they
yeah.
build a business off of that, which is kind of weird to me. But no, I
But the
wouldn't do
journey
that.
is always good to document. The
Oh yeah,
journey
for
is
sure,
always
for
interesting.
sure. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's subtle. I don't emphasize that. It's more so,
Right.
the other things. But again, appreciate you for calling me
Anytime,
here.
buddy.
Hope we'll
Anytime.
talk again soon.
For sure. Have a good day. Talk to you soon, buddy. Take
Bye
care.
bye.